Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Christopher Clark. I'm the town manager here in the community. We do have a formal town council meeting that will commence at the end of the public hearing, but we do have a public hearing notice in regards to setting of the tax rate. What I would like to do, just to kind of give people a orientation, is I will read, as I have done as practice, the notice itself, the dates in which it was advertised, and then I will turn it over to Mr. Canoyer on behalf of the Board of Assessors to do a brief presentation, and then we will entertain specific questions if people have specific questions. So the notice is, and it is a little past 6:30, so the notice reads, Town of Southbridge public hearing. A public hearing will be held by the Town Council on Monday, December 2nd, 2013 at 6:30 in the McKinnon Council Chambers, Town Hall, 41 Elm Street, Southbridge. This public hearing will be held pursuant to Chapter 40, Section 56, on the adoption of a residential factor for tax purposes and the adoption of the percentage of local tax levy to be borne by each class of real and personal property. Any person wishing to speak will be given the opportunity to be heard. Town of Southbridge, Christopher Clark, Town Manager. This was advertised in the paper on two dates, November 19th, 2013 and November 25th, 2013. What I'll do is I'd like to invite Will up to the podium, as well as, I don't know if Mrs. Donovan was going to join you or not, but obviously she's more than welcome. And then just to make sure people are aware, this is a public hearing, and if you would just come up and state your name at the conclusion of the presentation. And at this point, I will turn it over to Mr. Canoyer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clark. Members of the Town Council, citizens of Southbridge. Basically, I'm just going to go over some of the high points. This is a public hearing for the citizens to speak, and I don't want to take up too much of their time, but I'm going to go over the high points of the tax rate process and classification and so forth. So for the current year, the town value has, we've tabulated it to be $895,036,781. That's the total town taxable value. The tax levy, as it stands right now, looks to be 17, assuming you make some votes during the town council meeting, but $17,578,522. So using those two numbers, it translates into a tax rate of $19.64 per $1,000. Okay, that is the tax levy is an increase, overall increase from last year of $673,143, which is 3.98%. If you subtract this year's new growth of $220,584, it's an increase after new growth of $452,465 at 2.68%. Under the constraints of Proposition 2.5, the town could raise $17,782,761. However, the proposed tax levy is less than that by $204,239, which would leave us with an excess levy capacity, according to Prop 2.5, of that $204,239. The town could raise it in property tax. The town elects not to. So basically, the town has the option to, for all of our history, we've had a single tax rate, and that is the recommendation of the Board of Assessors for this year as well. But the town does have the option to split the tax rate, and if you were to elect to do that, you have the option. Just real quick, in your packets and in the town council presentation, there's all various levels of shift, but just for an example, the average single-family property tax with a single tax rate will be $3,078.02. If we shifted it to the maximum allowed by law, it would decrease to $2,606.29, a savings of about $400. However, if we were to do that, the average commercial tax, which is with a single tax rate, $10,295 would increase by 50% to $15,443, and the industrial would do similar. The Board of Assessors does not feel that's a good idea, so we recommend a factor of 1, a single tax rate. And that's pretty much it for our message.
Thank you, Mr. Knoyer. Again, just a word of caution. What this really is doing, this isn't redoing the budget. This is really just setting and allocating the tax rate amongst the different classes of property in the town. With that being said, I do wish to open it up. This is a formal public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to ask a question or have an opportunity to speak to be heard? If you would, just for the record, just state your name and your address, please.
Yes, Kevin Buxton, 257 Elm Street. I'd like Mr. Knoyer to, I'm not sure if the math is reversible. He mentioned by reducing residential taxes by 400, we'd be raising commercial and industrial rates by X amount. Could you explain to me how much would we have to bring in commercial and revenue taxes to get the same effect on the residential rate? Is the math reversible?
I don't know if we heard that in the, Mr. Buxton, I don't think we heard that in the microphone, just for the members of the council here. If you could, just the last part of your question, I think.
Basically, I'm asking if the math is reversible. In other words, Will gave the explanation that if we reduce the residential tax, we'd be increasing our industrial and our commercial. I'd like to know, do we need to see those increases in industrial and commercial taxes to come in to see a similar reduction in the tax rate for residential?
Do you understand the question, Mr. Knoyer?
That's an extremely difficult question because it really can't be answered under the constraints of the law. But let me kind of summarize it. The town is made up of approximately 76%, the town value, 75 to 76% residential. The remaining 25% is commercial, industrial, and personal property. Because of that ratio, the max you're allowed to by law is shift your existing tax levy to 150, the commercial class can go up to 150% of where they are now. At a factor of 1, they can go up to 1.5. So the tax levy would not change at all, but for every dollar to save on the residential side, the commercial side would have to pick up $3 if it was a straight switch, just shift over. During the town council meeting, we have a detailed presentation, and on items like this and similar. And one thing that's kind of the town, because of the valuation changes, our commercial percentage has increased again this year, and it's been increasing for, I think, since 2008. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but during the presentation you'll see it. So each and every year since 2008, the residential share of the tax burden has been going down, and the commercial, industrial, and personal property sectors have been going up. So just based on the market, on the valuation of real estate, and where the investment is in property, there's already a natural shift to the commercial, industrial, personal property side, and a reduction in the residential. Okay? I hope that answers it.
Thank you, Mr. Knoyer. Councilor Clemens.
Thank you. Mr. Buxton, are you referring to perhaps what we would have to bring in commercially, like additional commercial entities, to change that percentage? I think that's, to me, I thought you were asking, right now we're 75-25. That's really loud today. And so I was thinking you were thinking, how much more business would, or commercial or retail or whatever, would we have to bring in? Where would that divide be, perhaps? Would we need to be a 60-30? Would we need to be, we need to have more business in order to get that to reverse? Was that what you were thinking at all? I don't know. Sounded like it.
Yes, some of it. And also the situation of because we have that, we'll explain the situation where, 60% of our taxes come from residential. I've always
75.
understood the Board of Assessors and the Town Council's reluctance to not go with a level tax rate. But on the other hand, if we were to see residential, commercial, and industrial meet a playing field of 50%, then we would see, if the level tax rate would still remain, we would not see the savings in residential taxes. We would just see increased revenue from commercial and residential, because we're all being taxed on the same level. I appreciate Will's answer, and I know it's kind of complicated, and I don't really think that we can project if $20 billion worth of industry suddenly came into Southbridge. Would we see residential taxes fall? Not unless we changed our level tax base. Because
Just maybe let me take a stab at when you do the tax rate and set the tax rate, there's really two indicators that are occurring at the same time. One, you have the budget. The budget goes up, and the budget does go up every year because we have inflationary pressures on the town budget, so the budget goes up. The other part, which is really the equation for this evening, is what does the value do? And when the value stays stagnant or drops slightly overall, as the value goes down, the tax rate goes up. If we were to have a 10% growth in valuation, if the town was booming, a lot of businesses were selling, and we were really vibrant and much more vibrant, which there's not a lot of places that are right now. The economy is still fairly weak. But if we were to see that, you would start to see that tax rate drop. Because you have the two factors that go in, and you have to take both factors into account. The only thing we're discussing tonight is on that valuation question, do we want to split that rate where a higher portion would be assessed to basically commercial and industrial, or do you want to keep it as a single tax rate? If you want to be business friendly, a single tax rate is the best way to go, and many towns that are successful business-wise do maintain the single tax rate. So this evening is really the other part of the equation of, okay, here's the valuation, what have the valuations done, and how do we want to apportion that tax rate based upon that? And you have the ability to basically assess more onto commercial and industrial and not necessarily onto residential. The beneficiary of that is the residential. Hopefully that's a little bit responsive to your requirement.
I appreciate the explanation. I know financing is not always cut and dry. Let me make one final statement now.
Sure.
I'll be done for the evening. We'd all love to see that commercial and industrial growth come to town. We'd love to see maybe more residential growth or improved residential growth. But those are very much out of our control. We can try to lure in new commercial and industrials. We can do what we can to spruce up the town to make it look better. But the one thing that we could possibly do, and this goes to the budget, and I know the subject is not budget tonight,
Correct.
but in hindsight of continued increases in taxes, and you explained that budgets are constantly increasing because of inflation issues, I think one thing the council and the future manager, I think we need to draw a line in the sand. I think we need to say if this year's budget is $48 million, let's cap next year's budget at $48.5 and do whatever we have to maintain that budget. And by doing that, I think you're going to see some sense of trickle down to reduce this ever-growing. We learned in 2008 the ever-growing economy was a farce. We learned that ever-growing real estate wasn't the case. And I think sooner or later, maybe the simplest effect is to say, we can't continue with ever-growing budgets. We just can't do it. And we need to come up with some way of
Mr. Buxton, just so we're respectful, if anyone else wants to have an opportunity to speak, I would like to give them, the budget discussion is really one that's done in May, and there's where your point, but your point is well taken, and people should keep that in mind, that if the budget were to be reduced and services are reduced in the community, then the tax rate would go down too, because like I said, that is part of the equation that goes into determining what the taxes are on folks. I appreciate your comments.
I thank you for your time.
Are there anyone else in the audience? I know a few people had showed up. I just want to make sure this is the tax classification hearing in which we set whether we'll have a single rate or dual rate here in the community. There will be a formal presentation done within the full council meeting, but this is the public opportunity to be able to ask any questions that they see or they may have. I know the practice here is to have going once and going twice. We did have one speaker. Is there anyone else? I see no one approaching the podium, going twice. Again, seeing no one. And for a third and final time, everyone seems to be comfortable in their seats. So I will call and say that the formal public hearing on setting the tax rate is concluded, and I turn it over to you, Mr. Chairman, for the formal council meeting.
Would we get to speak during this? Do the counselors usually get to ask questions during this, or is it just? I know. Last year we got 2 opportunities to talk about it.
Did you want to get up and speak
No,
now? Because you can have an opportunity.
it will.
Yeah,
I
okay.
just noticed it was different.
Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the Town Council, Council Chambers, December 2nd, 2013. It is now 10:07. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Thank you. Agenda item number 2, roll call, please.
Counselor Carrasco?
Present.
Counselor Clemens?
Present.
Counselor Langevin?
Present.
Counselor Manna? Present. Counselor Marcucci?
Present.
Counselor Moriarty?
Excused.
Excused. Counselor Nicola?
Present.
Counselor Peliquin?
Present.
Counselor Vandal?
Yes.
8 here? Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. Agenda item number 3, consider and accept the Town Council meeting minutes of Monday, November 18th, 2013. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Any corrections or anything? Seeing none, show of hands, please. Abstain, 1 abstention. Thank you. Agenda item number 4, subcommittee reports. A, General Government, Councilor Nicola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have any minutes here, but we did have a meeting on, a General Government Subcommittee meeting on last Monday, November 25th, specifically to finish up discussion on the Bylaw Review Committee's findings. We did go over the different recommended changes and add-ons. At that meeting, the chair of the council was in attendance and suggested that we would not be bringing that forward until the following meeting, which is December 16th, I believe. And that's all. I have no other meetings scheduled at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. D, DPW, Councilor Vandal.
Mr. Chairman, we had a meeting of the DPW Subcommittee was held on Wednesday, November 20th, 2013, in the Rice Conference Room. In attendance were myself, subcommittee members Councilor Carrasco, Councilor Peliquin, citizen members Mark Moran and Steve Lazo. Also in attendance were Councilor Moriarty, Town Manager Clark, DPW Director Heather Blakely, Roger Cowett, Estelle Cowett, Raul Velez, Brandy Busquets, Stephen Campbell, Terry Dick, Harold Dick, Kristen Thomas, Catherine Gallagher, and Sherry Moriarty. I call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. Agenda item number 1. Vote to commence the process to accept a public way the roadway known as Maggie Lane, and to submit to council for ratification. Mr. Clark made a brief overview of the acceptance process for Maggie Lane. Mr. Clark stated that once the process is started with the council vote, the town will begin to snowplow Maggie Lane until the street acceptance process is completed. The acceptance process will take between 60 and 90 days. A motion was made by Councilor Peliquin and seconded by Steve Lazo with a favorable recommendation to council to commence the process to accept a public way, the roadway known as Maggie Lane. Vote by show of hands, all in favor, 5-0. Agenda item number 2, vote to accept the agreement between the town of Southbridge and Alan F. DePietro Masonry for concrete masonry work at various locations in an amount not to exceed $20,000. Funding to come from water and sewer and DPW current budget accounts. Ms. Blakely said this is a multiple work, all under $5,000, that has now gone over the $10,000 limit to one vendor. Councilor Vandal said this type of work used to be done in-house. Ms. Blakely said it is more efficient to have the work contracted out. Ms. Blakely stated monies coming from the water and sewer funds are directly related to repairs done involving water and sewer projects. Mr. Clark asked that this vote be withdrawn as it is not required to go to council under Chapter 30B. A motion to adjourn was made by Councilor Peliquin and seconded by Councilor Lazo. Made a mistake there, by Mr. Lazo. Vote by show of hands, all in favor, 5-0. Meeting adjourned at 7:25 p.m. Respectfully submitted, Evelyn Rivera, recording clerk. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. C, Education and Human Services, Councilor Marcucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We did have a meeting prior to the General Government Subcommittee meeting last week. The minutes are not attached, but on tonight's agenda, we did have a couple of appointments that are on tonight's agenda for council approval. I do not have another meeting scheduled. I would just like to remind councilors, tomorrow we do have a meeting, a joint meeting with the school committee for the discussion and appointment of a vacant position that is on the school committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. D, Planning and Development, Councilor Clements.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A meeting of Planning and Development Subcommittee was held on Tuesday, November 26, 2013, in the George Parent Conference Room. In attendance were myself, Councilor Peliquin, Councilor Manna, citizens members Roger Coet and Evelyn Petrelli. Also in attendance were Councilor Moriarty, Town Manager Clark, Cassandra Ackley, Eric Willard, Estelle Coet, Karen Pekarsky, and Tom Ayu. We called the meeting at 6:32. First agenda item, vote to appoint Lee Alton of Southbridge to the Planning Board for a 3-year term effective immediately through June 30th, 2016, and to submit to council for ratification. Mr. Clark said Mr. Alton is interested in the Planning Board, and after reviewing him, he is recommending appointment. Motion was made by Councilor Manna, seconded by Councilor Peliquin, with a favorable recommendation to council to appoint Lee Alton to the Planning Board for a 3-year term expiring June 30th, 2016. It was unanimous in favor. Agenda item 2, vote to designate a new Globe Village economic target area and to submit to council for ratification. Mrs. Ackley said the area behind Big Bunny is a residential area, and the economic opportunity target area she is proposing is primarily light commercial use. I just point out there's a lot of information on that particular agenda item that isn't here, and I'm sure if you would like more, you could see the town clerk's office for that information on tape. A motion was made by Councilor Manna, seconded by Roger Coet, with a favorable recommendation to council to designate a new Globe Village economic target area. Vote by show of hands, all in favor, 5-0. Agenda item 3 was a vote to award a tax increment financing agreement to Expert Laser Services, Inc., and to submit to council for ratification. Mrs. Ackley explained what a TIF is, and introduced Eric Wilbur from Expert Laser Services, who spoke about their business and the plans to renovate and move to 62 Pleasant Street, the former DPW building. Mr. Wilbur also spoke about the plans to create more jobs. A motion was made by Councilor Manna, seconded by Councilor Peliquin, with a favorable recommendation to council to award a tax increment financing agreement to Expert Laser Services, Inc. Vote by show of hands, all in favor, 5-0. Agenda item 4, vote to recommend components for new FY 2014 Community Development Block Grant application and authorize the town manager to sign grant documents and to submit to council for ratification. Mrs. Ackley said we can apply for $900,000. Mrs. Ackley passed around a calculation sheet with various projects and amounts. After much discussion, it was suggested that the following projects be done. Housing rehabilitation, $125,558. Chestnut Street, there's a section from Main to Cisco, $373,000. Redesign of the Central Street parking lot, $45,000. Overland Street, it's a reconstruction project on Overland Street, $288,442. And general admin costs $68,000, which came up to a total of $900,000. A motion was made by Councilor Manna, seconded by Councilor Peliquin, with a favorable recommendation to Council to recommend components for a new FY 2014 Community Development Block Grant application and authorize the town manager to sign grant documents. Vote by show of hands, all in favor, 5-0. I point out that that's a grant. All these funds, all these projects would be by grant, not by direct taxpayer money. Agenda item 5, vote to recommend that a proposed amendment to the Town of Southbridge zoning bylaws for medical marijuana be sent back to the Planning Board to receive public comment and to submit to Council for ratification. Mr. Clark gave an overview on the proposed amendment to the zoning bylaws and areas where it would be allowed. Karen Pekarsky requested that the Council look at areas where medical marijuana could be cultivated and not just dispensed. She asked that the Council not approach this topic with bias, but with the vote of the citizens. Again, there was a lot of discussion on this, even though technically the vote was to send it back to the Planning Board, and I encourage those of you who have an interest in this topic to pay attention to when the Planning Board is going to have a public hearing on this for more public comment, and that would be a good place to air your information, to get information and to air your concerns before it comes back up to Town Council. A motion was made by Councilor Manna, seconded by Councilor Peliquin, with a favorable recommendation to Council to recommend that a proposed amendment to the Town of Southbridge zoning bylaws for medical marijuana be sent back to Planning Board to review, to receive public comment. It was a all-in-favor motion, 5-0. Agenda item 6, update on McCann Field parking lot and access road improvements. Mrs. Ackley handed out a map on the changes already done and those going to be done to McCann Field parking lot. Great project, by the way. If you haven't had a chance to take a look, you can't drive on it yet, but it's going to be wonderful down there. Much safer for the public. Agenda item 7 was an update on the possible Economic Development Fund project at 1 Central Street. Mrs. Ackley handed out a sketch of the facade for storefront improvement at 1 Central Street. Mrs. Ackley said this is just something for the council to look at and think about as a future project. Again, more investment into our community for future. We applaud those who are taking the time to develop in our community. A motion to adjourn was made by Councilor Peliquin, seconded by Councilor Manna. Vote by show of hands. All in favor. We adjourned at 8:35. Respectfully submitted, Evelyn Rivera, recording clerk. We have no meeting set at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. E, protection of person and property. Councilor Carrasco, could you read the meeting minutes, please?
Yes, a meeting of the Protection of Persons and Property Subcommittee was held on Tuesday, November 19th in the Veterans Room, first floor, Town Hall. In attendance were Chairman Moriarty, Councilors Carrasco, Citizens Member Mr. Jovan and Mr. Nash, and also in attendance were Councilors Vandal, Marcucci, Clements, Manna, and also Town Manager Clark. Citizen members, citizens in attendance were Roger Cowett, Estelle Cowett, Finance Director Karen Harnois, Chief Charette, Lieutenant Shane Woodson, Officers Dwayne Ledoux, Detectives Robert Salisbury, Scott Bailey, and Ellie Rodriguez. Also in attendance were several other members of the Southbridge Police Department. Councilor Nicola was excused. Chairman Mariotti called the meeting into order at 7:02 p.m. Agenda item number 1, vote to approve the memorandum of agreement between the Town of Southbridge and the Southbridge Police Association, MOCP, Local 153, and submit to Council for ratification. A motion was made by Councilor Carrasco and seconded by Citizen Member Jack Jovan. Town Manager Clark stated that this was a fair and equitable agreement. A 3-year contract will become in effect July 1st, 2013 through June 30th, 2016. There is also a 2-year agreement effective June 30th, 2011 through June 30th, 2013. Councilor Manna had some concern about the accuracy of the contract dates but Town Manager Clark said that no changes can be made to the dates. Citizen Member Jovan inquired about the vacation timeline and sick leave. Chief Charette explained that officers used to work for a period of 10 to 20 years to get 4 weeks vacation, Now they receive 4 weeks after 10 to 15 years. Also, officers can call in sick the day after a scheduled vacation, and if an officer calls in sick, they are confined to their home, and they are in fact checked on to make sure that they are home. Citizen member Jovan asked about detective pay rates. Chief Charette stated that if they are on special detail, they normally receive detective pay rates for that duty. Chief Charette spoke about the new civilian dispatch program is a big help to the community and huge moral booster for the department, as it will make more efficient use of the police department for patrol. Councilor Carrasco asked if a prisoner is being held at the police department, will they be a uniformed officer in the building? Chief Charette said no. The civilian dispatcher will be trained on how to handle the prisoners. Chief Charette spoke about the wage increase, and this is the first contract that goes this far ahead. He stated that he has three detectives in the department at any one time. He stated that the shift differential increase complies with federal law, and it will be $1 for second shift and $1.25 for midnights. There were no further discussion. Vote by a show of hands. Vote in favor, Councilor Moriarty, Councilor Carrasco, Citizen Member Jack Jovan. Against, Citizen Member Rick Nash. Agenda item number 2, review and discuss police management study recommendation. Town Manager Clark suggested that the chief do a brief overview of what was done. Chief Charette stated that the study involved mostly communication. Town Manager Clark said it was taken like any other audit. Some of the gift accounts were done haphazardly. Programs such as Cops and Kids started out as grants, and he would like to see it become a little bit more formalized, set up specific gift accounts. He said that there are more uniformed officers on the ground now, and that the audit contained some observation. Chief Charette said that his staff meetings with supervisors and that having officer meetings are very expensive. The department has $75,000 in their overtime budget, and they are approximately 75% through that already. He feels that the community is much better now. He has found ways to plug holes in finances, but he has said that help is needed for detective vehicles. Citizen Member Jack Jovan asked the chief if he was going to take advantage of the money received from the town. He wouldn't need a 4-hour block for every meeting. The chief is going to request through the union attorney a reduction in the minimum pay for all callouts from 4 to 2 hours. The chief said that it costs approximately $11,000 for each meeting block. Chief Charette stated that starting in January 2014, there would be hopefully, a new training session beginning. Councilor Manis said that not all meetings involve all staff. The chief stated that it does not meet with the day shift into the second shift many times, and he has the supervisors do a lot of the training. Councilor Carrasco said that he had heard that one of the detective vehicles that was not a police vehicle. The chief said that would never happen. Councilor Carrasco also asked if the chief was driving an SUV. The chief responded yes, but it was the cheapest vehicle on the lot at the time of the purchase. The department was looking into the purchase of sedans, but the sedans are very tight for patrol. SUVs on patrol make much more sense. Councilor Carrasco said that the chief's SUV could be used for the detectives. The chief said it would made no sense for him not to have an SUV. Town Manager Clark said that we are one vehicle short and money will be put into appropriation if the town council deems appropriate. Citizen Member Jovan asked the chief if he should not be part of negotiations. The chief said that he felt the police that should be. Mr. Clark said that felt that the police chief should not be part of the negotiations. Town Manager Clark stated Excuse me, let me start all over here in this paragraph. Citizen member Jovan asked if the chief, if he should not be part of contract negotiations. The chief said that he felt the police chief said should not be part of the negotiation. What it's stating here is the chief, Chief Horn from the audit stated that he felt in the audit that our police chief should not be part of contract negotiations. Town Manager Clark stated that any related money in his responsibilities, but he felt that the chief should be part of the negotiations for operational considerations along with the labor attorney when needed for legal review. Councilor Manna asked about the vehicles that needed to be purchased. The chief said that about 5 years ago, the department started buying 2 vehicles per year. The money was taken out of the capital and placed into the operating budget. Councilor Moriarty asked the chief about officers being able to use their own weapons. The chief said that all patrol rifles are the same and that the officers must qualify with their own weapon. Citizen member Jovan asked if there was personal liability for officers. The chief said through the town attorney that as long as each officer has qualified with their weapon, there is no liability. The chief also stated that the officers use department-issued weapons as well. Councilor Manna asked if there were any state guidelines to using their own weapons, and Chief Charette said that there were none. Councilor Carrasco asked if a waiver would be issued, and the chief said there is no waiver yet. The chief reiterated that there is no liability for officers that use their own weapons. Councilor Cummins asked how long the police department has been practicing this, and the chief said about 1 year. Some communities use their own weapons and some don't. An unidentified officer stated that the Mass State Police use their own weapons. The chief stated that the department ammunition has to be signed out by every officer for every shift, even if it's for their own personal weapon. Citizen member Jovan asked how many officers are in the department right now. The chief said they are 34, but the budget allows them to have 35. The cost per position is approximately $60,000 with a base salary of $47,000. Councilor Manna stated that 10 years ago, there were 38 sworn officers in the department, and if there aren't enough officers, it does the town a great disservice. She would like to see it increase to 40 sworn police officers in the department. Citizen member Jovan asked if a 40-person department would be a possibility. The chief said that the department can go to a 36 officers and 3 civilian dispatchers or per diem dispatchers and see how it balances out. Citizen member Jovan asked if they had an amount to bring to council, and town manager Clark said they do not have yet a plan for what it would cost. Citizen Roger Cowett asked if they would consider using retired officers for dispatchers, and the chief said that he would like to see auxiliary police utilized. Citizen member Nash asked the chief about the increase of crime, and the chief said that over the summer there has been a rash of B&Es involving automobiles, and that violence with weapons among youth is increased, but drug activity at street level is down. However, street level activities that affect the quality of life is up, however. A motion to adjourn was made by citizen member Jovan and seconded by citizen member Nash. A vote by a show of hands, all in favor. Meeting adjourned at 8:35 p.m. Respectfully submitted, Justine French, reporting clerk. At this time, we don't have a meeting scheduled.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. With these minutes on the second page, in the 7th paragraph, where they're talking about the personal weapons, there was an important statement made that night by Sergeant Jose Dingy in regards to the ammunition that's used in the personal weapons, and that is that it is registered ammunition, and I feel that should be reflected in these minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Clements.
Thank you. On the first page, let's see, 1, 2, 3, about the fourth paragraph down, it was the information in regards to the civilian dispatch. I think it's important to note that there was a question, somebody had asked, Councilor Carrasco had asked about the uniformed officer in the building, and the response they have here is Chief said no. I believe the question was, do we have to have a uniformed police officer in the building? And the chief did reply no because of the civilian dispatch training. But I think it's important to note that it wasn't, will there be one? Do we have to have one? I think it's, you know, a little bit of a change there. So if we could just add, do we have to? Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Councilor Carrasco.
Just to go over what Councilor Manis said, I think it was just misquoted. It says the chief stated that the Department of Ammunition has to be signed out by every officer. I think it was Sergeant Jose Dingy that stated that, wasn't the chief. That's all.
Thank you. All set? Anyone else? Thank you. Moving on, number 5, Chairman's announcements. I have a few this evening. First of all, I just want to thank Council Monique Manor and Denise Clements for, again, yesterday, your decorating committee downtown. You do it every year, and you do a great job, and there's a lot of time and sacrifice. And I know I'm going to miss some people, so I'm not going to name them all. I really, obviously, let you have the floor and let it, but I just wanted to let you guys know that with your families out there and stuff, and downtown does look beautiful. So I want to thank you for all your time and effort in putting that together, because it is a great event and it's a nice event. So I want to thank you guys for that. Just in everyone's packet, they've probably seen, just a friendly reminder, the annual MMA meetings and trade shows coming up. If you are planning attending and you would like to have a hotel room booked and stuff, please just reach out to Town Manager Secretary Yvonne, and she will set up and book the rooms and get everything together for you. Just make sure that we have all necessary paperwork in by December 13th. So if you are planning going, it's very valuable, a lot of information. Just reach out to Yvonne and she'll take care of making the arrangements. Councilor Marcucci and I just got together in the next meeting, December 16th. We will be announcing, as we did the first half of the year, we will be announcing the next 6 months, so everyone can put it in their calendars and stuff like that. So that will be coming up. So I just want to inform the council of that. And then with the departure of the town manager coming, me as the chair, I had to get some things together, and I'm trying to make this as smooth and efficiently as possible, and I do appreciate the town manager and his support in trying to help us. And I just want to let you know it doesn't go unnoticed to help us move in the right direction, and I feel that we are going to be heading in the right direction. With that being said, the next council meeting, the 16th, I will unfortunately not be here. Councilor Marcucci will be running the meeting, but we will have a temporary town manager. He's retired, that all councils will be able to meet, greet, and ask questions. All the information will be prior into everyone's package, so they have time to look over the resume, and then we can try to move forward. So there'll be a nice transition. According to charter, Ms. Hanois is the one that would be taking over, but we all know during budget season it's very difficult. Her plate is full. So with that being said, we want to bring in an intern person, just possibly for 2-3 days a week, to take some of the demands off of her, so we continue moving forward and head in the right direction until we get our next town manager in place. So I just want to inform the council that will be coming. The information will be in your packet. And then hopefully we'll have a nice, smooth transition, and we can continue moving on with our business. The next thing is, obviously, the chair, according to charter, is the person that picks the town manager's search committee. And I gotta say, it's very interesting. I tried to do what I feel is best for the whole community and balance everything. And I'm sure there's some people out there that wish they were picked. It's a 5-member panel. I'm trying to do the best. I'm trying to reach out to community professionals. And also I have a couple counselors, according to charters, 2 counselors and 3 citizens member. With that being said, tonight, so we can continue moving forward, the chairman of that committee will be Councilor Darlene Marcucci. The other council will be Sean Moriarty. The citizen members on this council will be Terry Colonnese, Glenn Biscay, and Peter Iacobucci. I did have one other person prior that was interested that unfortunately dropped out at the last minute. So I tried to reach out to a very diverse group of people that will all work together, that understand business, and I'm very, very comfortable and I'm very grateful that these people are going to give it time, and I feel that it's a committee that will definitely move our town forward. So I wanted to inform the council on that so we can move forward and continue to have a true smooth transition. I do not have any other announcements at this time. Moving on to agenda item number 6, town manager's announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have 3 this evening. One is we have received a flyer from Bay Path Education Foundation that they are doing a Santa Claus breakfast, pancake breakfast, Saturday, December 7th, 7:30 to 10:30 a.m. It's a silent auction and free photography with Santa. $5 for tickets, children under 5 free. And if you're interested in that, it's going to be up at the Bay Path Vocational Technical High School, 57 Mugget Hill Road, Charlton. Also, we received notice from Casella that Casella is offering a household hazardous waste day that is scheduled for I think this Saturday, December 7th, at 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the facility up at 165 Barefoot Road. So Household Hazardous Waste Day this Saturday, December 7th. Also, I did announce this last time. I did receive a blurb from DPW and would like to just remind folks that Southbridge does have a winter parking ban that began on December 1st, so it's a couple days in effect. Alternate side parking will go into effect on Sunday, December 1st, 2013. It will remain in effect until April 1st, 2013. Alternate side parking is in effect all day beginning at 7 p.m. They give an example on Sunday, December 1st, 2013. All cars should be parked on the odd side of the street beginning at 7 p.m. until 7 p.m. Monday, December 2nd, 2013 at 7 p.m. on Monday, December 2nd. Cars should be moved to the even side of the street until 7 p.m. on Tuesday, December 3rd. For your convenience, regulations are available at the town clerk's office at Town Hall. If residents have questions about their particular street, there are several listed for the different elements. Please contact the Department of Public Works at 508-764-5403. On snow removal policy for all municipal parking lots, Central Street, La Rochelle Way, Elm Street, Foster Street, and Chapin Street lots. The town of Southbridge has adopted the following snow removal policy for municipal parking lots. Municipal parking lots will be closed to all vehicles the night after the snowstorm to allow for snow removal between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. The town will attempt to have the Foster Street lot and the town hall parking lot cleared and available for overnight parking. Vehicles must be moved by 7 a.m. Parking in these lots shall come on a first-come, first-served basis. And that concludes my comments this evening, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 7, swearing in presentation. This we will be moving just so it's more convenient and for the public. Mr. Will Canoia, when we get to the agenda item in between 14 and 15, that's when he'll do his presentation. So it'll just be a smooth transition and everyone will know. So for now, we will continue moving forward. Agenda item number 8, excuse me, Citizens Forum. Is there any citizens that would like to speak tonight on something that's not on the agenda? Just please state your name and address, please.
Dan Butler, 35 Brookside Road. You hear me?
Yeah, it's a little weak. Can you turn up the mic, please?
Better?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Three things, I think. First off, Town Manager, I know you're going to be leaving. I just wanted to, I guess, say thank you on behalf of everyone that, I know we haven't always agreed on things, but you've always been fair with me in particular. You've always returned my calls. You've been there for some of the situations I've called you for that were important to me at the time and stuff, so which is what you're supposed to do. So I wish you the best of luck, and thanks for everything. Number two, I wanted to thank Heather Blakely. That poor lady has been dealing with well, first we had the DPW director had left in the, I guess, in the works of the drainage project on Charlton Street and Brookside Road. So she got kind of handled all that, and I know it was a chore for her. She had some complaints throughout the whole thing from this and that, because it was quite a project. She did great. As far as I know, it's all complete. They did our driveway aprons. I think they finished up last week. I believe it's all finished as far as I can tell. We had the big heavy rain. I don't know what day it was. Last week we had like 24 hours of straight heavy rain. It was, at least on Brookside Road, I can vouch that it was doing exactly what I had prayed it did over a year ago. All the rain was continuing on down both sides of the road, continuing to the bridge. We had a heavy flow, good river going down. I don't know about Charlton Street. I can't speak for those people, but I'm assuming most people are happy. So to Heather, thank you very, very much. The rest of the DPW crew. Third, I was just going to ask, like I said, I know Town Manager's leaving, something I had asked you back in June about. I went up to a meeting with Casella. I think I met with, was her name Tracy?
Tracy Mark.
Yeah, yeah. And I had taken a tour, and then I had spoken. I had to voice some issues with the noise at the base of the street, the commercial drive. She had told me they were going to look into a couple different options with either bushes, arborvitae, something to deaden the noise, or sound barriers. It was all kinds of different options. I had also talked to her at the time about possibly making at least 1 mile area a no jake brake area for trucks. Unfortunately, I've been told from the state rep, Peter Drant's office, that they're saying that the DOT says that for safety reasons, they can't make it a no jake brake zone. Still confused on that, because the part we're talking about is a flat area of 169. I'm not talking about them coming down, I understand. But anyways, that was back in June, and I'm just following up if anything's been done. I mean, I know the last meeting I wasn't here. It's tough with the baby running around now. She's pulling everything off the shelves. But I'm here tonight, and I heard everybody talking about the tonnage being raised up at the landfill. And that's what I was talking about back then, is more trucks, and there's more and more and more. It's just getting loud, and of course it's winter now. We lost all the leaves, so it's even worse. So I mean, I'm just, on behalf of my neighbors and all, just following up, see if anything's been done, anything we can do at this point, just to,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In terms of that, we did link the basically doing some noise buffering in with the land purchase that we had on the triangle piece up there, and we are in the process still of kind of negotiating the purchase and sale. So once that comes to fruition, we should have that, and then once that work is going to be allowable to be done, we will get in there and do that as part of the agreement for the purchase of that property. So it is still in the works. It has taken quite a bit of time.
Mm-hmm.
There are some legal elements that need to make sure that we get addressed. So it's not necessarily this issue, but it's those other legal elements that we're attempting to get addressed. So it hasn't been forgotten. It is in the negotiation process. And that is one thing I do hope to kind of wrap up before I leave, is to at least have the purchase and sale done, and that would have the plantings would go in.
Okay.
On the plantings, though, they are going to be on Commercial Drive on either side. It wouldn't be across the street because there's already plantings that have been done across the street.
Yep.
And I was advised that we wouldn't want to try to put additional plantings in because it will have a detrimental effect on the plantings that have already
Yeah.
been put in.
Okay, all right, I just figured I'd follow up on that. And I guess that's all. If I don't see anybody, have a Merry Christmas. We'll see you all next year. Thank you.
Yes. Council Clements, you have something?
Thank you. If I could, through you to the town manager, one of the suggestions that had been made last year was, I realized the no jake break situation. I wouldn't have expected them to do a zone for no jake breaks. However, we had talked about the potential for another sign, because right now there's a sign that's about 2 miles out that says Commercial Drive, 2 miles or thereabouts. There's nothing until you come upon next right or whatever that there's a right-hand turn to the landfill right there. And that, in turn, as Mr. Butler has said in the past, a lot of times the vehicles have to stop quick because they don't realize now they're upon it. We discussed the possibility of a state sign or whatever type of sign we would have to do, whether it's 1,000 feet or 500 feet, or something with a little bit more of a warning to the trucks. Also, it's a safety for everybody, because technically when a truck has to put on their brakes quick, anybody behind them suddenly, has an issue. So certainly if they're mindful and they see a sign that says, in 500 feet or 1,000 feet or whatever the state would deem, the highway department would deem proper, I think that is a most cost-efficient and less invasive simple solution to that may take care of some of that jake brake noise from the trucks who suddenly realize they have to take a right-hand turn because they didn't realize it was already 2 miles. So, there's no flashing light. That could have been another thing, a slow caution flashing light, but certainly a sign that just mentions the entrance. And I know we discussed that prior to that meeting that you had with the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Gus Steve, 771 Lebanon Hill. I just had a quick announcement that, as we know, we often hear about lifestyle changes in cancer, and Councilor Moriarty often brings up Relay for Life. But while lifestyle changes can help individuals cope with it, the ultimate problem we face isn't individual, it's systemic. And as a culture, we're poisoning ourselves slowly with various chemicals and industrial toxins. Those are what we need to address the cancers and other ills. And this weekend, the Festival of Living Trees helps to raise funds to address some of those issues. On Thursday at 11:30, Dr. Laurel Shader is speaking over at Harrington. She talks about water quality and chemical toxins and cancer. And unlike last year, this is free and includes lunch. That's in the first floor conference room at Harrington's new Cancer Center. And a related event is on Friday at 12 p.m. with a screening of A Town Fights Back, Tom's River story, about a New Jersey town that found a lot of cancer cases and traces them to chemicals from dye manufacturing, which sounds a lot like us, unfortunately. And that's at Tri-State Toyota in Dudley. Both of them, as I said, are parts of this weekend's Festival of Giving Trees, which runs from Thursday from 10 a.m. till Sunday at 3 p.m., obviously not overnight. Most of it's at LaSalle. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Roger Cowett, 82 Toyota Avenue. I'm here tonight to compliment the Southbridge Highway Department and the Police Department for a job well done yesterday. On yesterday morning, around 7:30, 8 o'clock, we had black ice on Toyota Avenue. Traffic was stopped completely. If it wasn't for the good common sense of the Southbridge Police Department notifying the Highway Department to resolve this problem, because the state never showed up, and it prevented a lot of automobile accidents going down Ashland Avenue because there's black ice and couldn't go nowhere. And we should compliment the Police Department. Officer Dwayne Ledoux had enough common sense to get a hold of the Highway Department, and Councilor Clements' son-in-law, Mikey, was able to come over with the sander and sand the road, the hill. Otherwise, you would have never been able to move forward because the ice is so treacherous. Also, I'd like to say thank you to the lady at Dessa Paint for contributing a lot of paint for the Christmas decoration she did again last year. And this year she gave even more gallons of paint, and as well as some quarts of the mixed oil paints and latex paint. And I just say thank you very much. And again, if it wasn't for the police and fire department, police and highway department, this problem yesterday could have ended up in a disaster. We would have had many accidents because it was so slippery. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cowett.
I'm John Pulaski, Old Woodstock Road. This is just real quick, a little bit of follow-up from last week. There's a lot of talk about who said what and when, back when the negotiations of the landfill were in process. And if one was to go to marchetticartoons.com, there's no longer cartoons there. There's no editorializing. It's really more of an information site. I was able to look at a lot of these meetings as anyone else can. It's really incredible. And just for clarification, I found it interesting that John W. Giorgio of Copeland and Page made it very clear that this town will get $108 million before there's any expansion, without any change of the footprint. $108 million. So based on that, if we're going, and it wasn't like over the years, it's not, they don't pay rent up there, it's over volume. And I don't know, I don't think we've gotten as much as even 10% of that. Maybe we have. I don't look at the treasurer's reports every year. But it looks like if that landfill is getting filled up in the next 3 years, we're going to be getting a windfall. And if we're not, Mr. Giorgio is, that particular law firm is one of the most prevalent, important law firms in the state. They represent well over 100 towns. They have a lot of friends in the courts. If Mr. Giorgio told us that we're getting $108 million before there's any expansion of that landfill, I think we should get it. And Mr. Giorgio ought to be reacquired as an attorney, because even if we give him 10, 20%, 15%, 30%, the town's going to get tens of millions of dollars, and we're going to need it. Because I'm being told from some people in Charlton that virgin soil that went in off the side of the landfill happens to include a lot of trash. Now, maybe they're full of it. Maybe it's just clean virgin soil. But at least people in Charlton are saying that landfill is slipping into Charlton. And our town will have to pay fines along with Casella, because those permits that we approved and allowed to follow say that we share the liability. And that's another thing Mr. Giorgio is very clear about on those videos, that Casella has the liability. So there's another reason to contact Mr. Giorgio and protect our town's best interest. Because $108 million, I know, even for a government, that's a lot of money. And if it is true what the people are saying in Charlton, perhaps they can consult with some people at our DPW, because although there were some problems with the DPW, the landfill never fell apart on the side and with its contents spilling into another community or even into our own community. But thank you for your time. That's Marchetti, M-A-R-K-E-T-T-I, cartoons.com. There's no editorializing, no cartoons, no one's being poked fun of. There's no smart aleck comments. It's just the meetings, the way they occurred. Councilor Marcucci is going to be very proud when if she takes the time to look at it, because it shows that she had a lot of wisdom and foresight at that time with her questions. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Kevin Buxton.
Mr. Box,
Just
can you hold on
before you
1
start,
second?
just on the landslide issue, there was material that went into Charlton, and there is an element in the agreement that says that they are responsible for, Casella being them, is responsible for any of the fines that may be issued. So every indication I've received so far is that they understand it's their obligation to meet those fines and to meet those expectations of cleaning that up. And to date, they have done what they had in the agreement to do. So I just wanted to make sure that the community was understood that that statement may not be 100% accurate that was made by the previous speaker. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Buxton. Thank you.
Kevin Buxton, 257 Elm Street. I too wish to speak about last week, the previous town council meeting when Casella gave their representation of the life of the landfill. I've been discussing landfilling and recycling before this council since 1996, so I suppose if anybody came to say, I told you so, maybe I have a foot to stand on. I'm not here to say I told you so, but I'm here to tell you it's not too late. I was concerned all through the process from 96 and, of course, in 2007, that I felt the town didn't realize just how difficult it would be to oversee the operation of the landfill. Mr. Clark made it clear that it was one of the most daunting parts of his time here, and it's still not over. In the past, I've commented about the processing of material at the landfill. The 20-acre parcel of land, which is sitting where the H-foot road extension is supposedly making that available for landfilling, is the processing facility. Now, I understand Casella is a for-profit company, and therefore they haven't been able to come up with an effective processing facility to put there. They do have a leasee who's going to lease out the blue building for demolition and construction debris, which does not aid in Southbridge maintaining a future of its landfill. If a processing facility of MSW were to be established, the 406,000 tons, if 1%, only 1% of that was processed and removed from going into the landfill, it would cover 460,000 tons, which would be about the yearly output of Southbridge. Just 1%. I think what Southbridge needs to do is look at emphasizing to Casella, if they can't come up with a legitimate processing facility for the 20 acres, then the town should take the 20 acres back by eminent domain and establish its own not-for-profit corporation to process MSW. It's the only way you're going to see, step one, we would be able to process our own MSW, and as the process builds, we look at processing additional MSW to pay for the cost. When it comes to cost, one of the things you have to remember is we have 2024, we have free trash pickup till 2024. However, I've referred to that as an addiction. Because we have that 2024, we're not going to start doing anything today. We should have started doing something 6 years ago. And I agree with the council that if you do nothing in 2 or 3 years when they come back and you think you have 4 years left, no, you might have 2 years, you might have less. The process of a landfill, you make your money by filling the hole. It's not a big business scheme. You fill the hole. That's how you make your money. And the town needs to open its eyes and realize that if we're going to look forward as far as our trash future, then we either start pushing the emphasis on processing the material now, or we just hang it on our grandchildren to pay whatever it costs them to get rid of their trash. I think we were a little nearsighted when we looked at this contract. Everybody saw money. I think we need to be a little more farsighted and look at the future for Southbridge. And the future is not necessarily in Casella's hands. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hi, Jean Hyde, 108 Plimpton Street. Recently, I heard Town Manager Clark speak of the winter parking ban. I submit a form requesting to eliminate the parking ban from my street due to parking inconveniences. What I'm going to press now is to the council if we can possibly modify it, since there is no snow and we're not predicted snow for this week, and who knows, maybe we only might get 2 snowstorms this year. It's like, but why can't we modify it to where you're still able to park on both sides of the road if there's no snow? See, like right now, you have to park on the even side if it's even. And if a police officer comes up and you're not parked on the proper side, you get ticketed. I was just trying to press that if there's no snow on the ground, why should we have to, do this parking ban?
Well, I think at the last meeting, I think I had the date that this was initiated. I think this has been in place since, I think, the 1960s. So the town has taken the approach of doing this system in which to attempt to accomplish public safety. In particular, your street, you did submit a request to Traffic Commission. I know Traffic Commission studied that and looked at that. And if we cannot get vehicles down a street when it does snow, then we have a significant issue in which our response time to be able to get to people. So the streets that were selected are actually pretty carefully vetted by the police department and by DPW, and we try to select streets that have this ban on it for streets in which we have confidence that we know if without it, we won't be able to respond. Probably about 3 years ago, I went out with a DPW crew and saw him doing the snowplow. And until you see what these gentlemen, in most of the cases, gentlemen, have to put up with when there's cars in the street and their inability to open up a street, it really does create a significant public safety hazard to the residents that live in there. So I know this is an inconvenience for a large number of people, but I think people need to take into account that in an emergency situation, if we had, if we said, well, okay, we'll wait till only when it snows. This is New England. I've grown up here my entire life. Weathermen don't always get it right. I think we just had Worcester, was it 70 cars and 3 tractor trailers. We can't wait till after the crisis occurs. So I think the town has taken this stance and has had this in place for a long time. And I think our road crews do a good job and be able to respond to it. So I know on the surface, it does seem silly that, are there days in which it's 40 degrees and we're like, well, why do you have a winter parking ban? But I think because of the uncertainty of New England, they have a range. And generally, I think this has served us pretty well in the ability to be able to respond to calls and be able to meet the emergency needs of the community when they come up.
Well, even if they're, like I'm saying, if they're predicting snow, say, even if it's a 30% chance of snow, then they'd have to go into parking effect. But I'm just saying, if there's nothing predicted or zero precipitation, I don't see why we can't kind of compromise here.
Yeah, I never thought I'd be defending this too much, but I would say just, there's multiple issues to that. One is, whose weather forecast do we rely upon? I was actually in a town once, in a different town, and the weather forecast said there'd be no snow. There was 8 inches of snow on the ground at the time that report came out. So, there's a lot of uncertainty. I think the town has taken the approach and has taken this approach for a long, long time to do this, and it's really for public safety purposes that this has been put into place. And I think if it has been effective, then why would we alter it to make sure that, we've been successful? I see that the chief's gotten up, and he has more history here than I do. And maybe he can speak to a little bit more of the background behind it.
Chief, could you just wait 1 second? I have Councilor Nicola. Councilor Nicola.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I think part of the reason that we do this is really the human factor. It really takes people a while to get into the swing of it in order to do the alternate parking. For me, it would drive me crazy. I'm very fortunate I have a driveway I can go up. I'm not on the street. But I know a lot of people in this town have to park on the street. And, I've heard counselors over the years make the comment that, and this is crass, but it's true. The town owns the streets. We don't owe the people parking. What we're trying to do is make it as convenient for you as possible. But even with a winter parking ban, as the manager was saying, I know last winter, good luck trying to get down Everett Street. Good luck. There was no possible way. There were snowbanks, cars parked on the snowbanks. Nobody wanted to give an inch. And I think what happens is if you start early, even if there's no snow on the ground and you're doing the, you know, alternate parking, you get into the habit so that when it does snow, you're doing the right thing. And that's the only reason I think that it works, even without the snow, is that you do have to get into you have to really think about it. I know my son lives on Hamilton Street. He has to think about that every single day, and I know it's a hassle, but it's really for the public safety. I mean, you know, you try to get, I don't know how an emergency vehicle would have gotten down Everett Street last year. I really don't. I don't think it would have been possible because of the way the cars were parked and the snowbanks and all. So I think that that's part of the reason, is to just try to get people in the mindset. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Chief?
Councilor Nicola said that very well. Without question, if we don't start it and maintain, we actually end up writing a lot more citations. So really the way that we do the least enforcement is to do consistent enforcement. And that way, when something does occur, we have to do a lot less towing. So Councilor Nicola was absolutely right. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Is there anyone else that would like to get up and speak? Something that's not on the agenda tonight? Seeing none, we will move on to agenda item 9. Vote to appoint George Gus Steves to the Conservation Committee for a one-year term effective immediately through June 30th, 2014 to fill the vacancy due to resignation.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Clements?
Yes.
Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Marcucci?
Yes.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
Counselor Peliquin?
Yes.
Counselor Vandal?
Yes.
Counselor Krasko?
Yes.
8 yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Agenda item number 10, vote to appoint Lori Jeske of the Southbridge as a constable effective immediately for a 3-year term to expire June 30th, 2016. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Marcucci?
Yes.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
Counselor Peliquin?
Yes.
Counselor Vandal?
Yes.
Counselor Krasko?
Yes.
Counselor Clements?
Yes.
8 yes.
Motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item number 11, vote to appoint Lee Alton of the Southbridge to the Planning Board for a 3-year term effective immediately through June 30th, 2016. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Marcucci?
Yes.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
Counselor Peliquin?
Yes.
Counselor Vandal?
Yes.
Counselor Krasko?
Yes.
Counselor Clements?
Yes.
Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
8 yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Agenda item number 12, vote to ratify the memorandum of understanding between the Town of Southbridge and the Southbridge Police Association, MCOP Local 153, for a 5-year effective June 30, 2011 through June 30th, 2016. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Councilor Vandal.
What's the $120,000 for the contract with the police?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Marcucci?
Yes.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
Counselor Peliquin?
Yes.
Counselor Vandal?
No.
Counselor Krasko?
Yes.
Counselor Clements?
Yes.
Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
7 yes, 1 no.
Motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item number 13, vote to appropriate $120,000 from the stabilization fund to meet said contract obligations, including in the memorandum of understanding with the MCOP Local 153. This requires a 2/3 vote. I have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? I have seeing any? No discussion. Roll call, please.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
Counselor Peloquin?
Yes.
Counselor Vandal?
No.
Counselor Krasko?
Yes.
Counselor Clemens?
Yes.
Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Marcucci?
Yes.
7 yes, 1 no.
Motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item number 14, vote to accept the council's intention to lay out the roadway known as Maggie Lane and refer to the matter to the planning board for a non-binding recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Peloquin?
Yes.
Counselor Vandal?
Yes.
Counselor Krasko?
Yes.
Counselor Clemens?
Yes.
Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Marcucci?
Yes.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
8 yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. At this time, I will ask Will to come up and get ready to do his presentation for us, please, on the tax classification. Thank you, Will. Certainly.
Thank you for your patience. I'll try to be as brief as possible. One of the reasons the Board of Assessors likes to do this presentation is you guys have been through this numerous times, and you know it backwards and forwards. But the people at home, it's kind of a mystery to them, and we'd like them to understand, you know, what it's all about, how the numbers, how their individual taxes come about, and so forth. So, as I say, I'll try to be as quick as possible. But okay, as I said, good evening. I'm Will Knoyer. I'm the chairman of the Board of Assessors, along with Kara Donovan and Fran Biscay, the elected members. Tonight we'll be discussing the tax rate and the tax classification factor for fiscal year 2014. Let's see. We have a very experienced board between us. Mr. Biscay has been a board member since the early 90s. I've been a board member since the late 80s. And Mrs. Donovan has been a board member since, well, she actually worked in the office and then became a board member in the early 90s. So we've been doing this a long time. You wouldn't know it by looking at us, but we've been around. Okay. Purposes of classification. Mass General Law allows a shift in the tax burden between the classes. So what that means is you can shift the burden to the commercial, industrial, and personal property sectors if you wish. This does not change the tax levy for the town of Southbridge or any town. It simply determines the percentage to be paid by each class. What classification? Mrs. Donovan is going to be passing a copy of our PowerPoint presentation around. You've all received this in detail in a memo a couple of weeks ago, but this is the light version. So classification does not determine the tax rate. We'll go over in detail how this is determined, but it's simply the tax levy divided by the town value. Classification does not determine how much money can be raised. Proposition 2.5 in Mass General Law determines how much money can be raised. Classification does not determine how much money will be raised. The voted upon appropriations during the year and all of the revenue sources determine this. Our topics of discussion tonight will be our new growth, the property values and the taxable town value, the tax levy and the tax rate, our levy limit, the excess levy capacity, the classification factor I've already alluded to. We'll give some examples of a tax shift, and tax-wise, how do we compare to other communities? New growth, what is it? It's new buildings, additions, renovations, new subdivisions, businesses, and a big factor in Southbridge is business equipment, primarily through the utilities. How does it affect property taxes? It brings in additional tax dollars attributable to the new construction and lessens the effect to current taxpayers. How does it affect the levy limit? It increases the amount of property tax that can be raised under the provisions of Prop 2.5. So our new growth for this year, as you can see, there is $11,942,000 of new growth value. That translates out to an additional $220,584 in additional property taxes to new taxpayers or taxpayers who've expanded. This lessens the effect to the existing property taxpayer. Now, in this chart, you can see 69% of the new growth came from the personal property class, which again is business equipment. 25% came from the residential class. So as you can see, about 3/4 of it came from the business sector. The taxable value, as this table illustrates, the town value this year is $895,036,000. This is a decrease of $20,251,000, or 2.2% from last year. And last year, the residential class bore 77.1% of the total taxes. And that's reduced this year to 76%. This is the continuation of a trend that began in fiscal year 2007. And the primary reason is the entire residential real estate classes decreased approximately 2.91%, and the CIP classes remained relatively stable. Again, this chart illustrates that the 76% paid by the resident of the tax burden paid by the residential class, and the remainder paid by the commercial, industrial, personal property classes. Now, this chart right here, dating from 2007 to the current year, you can see in 2007, the residential classes paid 83% of the tax burden of the town. That's been decreasing each year, and the commercial, industrial, personal property sectors has been increasing to this year, the residential class paying 76%, 76.5. That's a very good trend. I wish it was happening based on new construction and so forth, but really the reason is the commercial class has been retaining its value very, very well, and the residential class, after the real estate boom, has been contracting somewhat. And actually, to get to this point in 2007, the opposite happened. The residential class, we all remember when residential values were skyrocketing, double digits every year, and the commercial industrial was relatively stable at that point. So they were picking up less of a percentage of the tax levy in those years. Recertification and inter-year adjustments. Revaluation, recertification, inter-year adjustments. Every 3 years, the state requires every city and town to go through a full revaluation, recertification, where soup to nuts, the state and the town redo all of the values. We analyze a million things, visit most of the properties in a town. What additionally happened around 2001 is the state now requires the towns to do it on their own in the interim years, but the state doesn't come in and, go through it with you, but you're still required to do it to the same standards. And what that means is the town reaches full and fair cash value as of January 1 prior to every fiscal year. So our values for this year are as of January 1, 2013. It's all based on comparable arm's length sales, the prior year sales, to reach this full and fair cash value. Taxes are based on the proportional share of the town value. What that means is whatever percentage you want of your property is, let's say, for example, it's valued at $100,000 and the town is valued at $895 million. Well, you own that percentage of the town, whatever that ratio is, so you pay that percentage of the tax burden. I hope that was simple. And these individual proportions change from year to year. That's why sometimes property taxes for somebody will go up, and a few years later they'll go down or go up at different proportions. It's because of how the real estate market is valuing their type of property, and so their proportion of owning the town is slightly different. Okay. A little bit more on that. How do we come up with our values, and do people say sometimes, do you ever look at my property? Well, cyclical inspection program. The state requires us to get to every single property, and there's approximately 6,000 in town, a minimum of once every 9 years. So we visit about 500 a year just as part of this cyclical inspection program to try to maintain it on course. Sales review. Every property that sells, I go take a look at it. We send out letters to the people who buy them, asking information about that sale. Does it represent market value? Anything else going on? Building permits. Anytime anyone takes out a building permit, we go out there and look at it to see how to update our records, whether it be, somebody adding a pool or demolishing something. We update our records on every building permit. Recertification, revaluation, field review. In addition to everything else I just said, every 3 years we have to visit, according to the state, a minimum of half of the properties. This is an exterior inspection, actually from by the street, but we have to visit about half of our properties every 3 years. Annual income and expense questionnaires. We send these out every year to all of the businesses, all of the apartment owners greater than 4 units. And this allows us to value their property based on the income approach, figure out what rents are, what vacancies are, and so forth. Forms of list. What that is it's a mailing we do to all of the businesses, and it gives them a chance to say what they have for equipment in that business, so we don't have to estimate it. It gives them their fair say at it. Inspections per taxpayer request. I get calls all the time when people will say, can you take a look at my property? I want to make sure the value is correct. Abatement applications. Anybody who applies for an abatement, we go out there and inspect it. Point to all of that is it's a lot of site visits. We've seen all of the properties, know them intimately. Okay, this year's valuation changes. Single families, the property values have been decreased in the aggregate about 4.4%. Condominiums have gone down 8%. 2 and 3 family properties have gone down about 1.3. Multifamily houses, these are 4 unit and above, all the way up to Rosemead, which is several hundred. Those have remained relatively stable, but they went down about 0.6%. Land went down about 2.5%. So in the total residential class went down about 3.3%. The total commercial class went down less than 1%. It's even less. It's just a small fraction. The industrial class, I apologize. The commercial class went up less than 1%. The industrial class went down just less than 1%. Your tax levy and tax rate. The tax levy is determined by all appropriations and expenditures, your state and county charges. It's paid for by state aid and reimbursements, local receipts, which are excise tax, fees, ambulance billings, and a multitude of other things. Enterprise funds, your water and sewer rates, free cash, stabilization, other transfers that you make, and the remainder is the tax levy, which is what we're talking about tonight. So the tax levy for Southbridge this year, this is from the recap, which is a form that is submitted to the state and having our tax rate approved. But the total amount to be raised, based on all of the votes that you guys made during the course of the year and other expenditures, is $56,619,000. You subtract from that all the other revenue sources, which are state aid of $21 million, local receipts of $5.6 million, enterprise funds $7.5 million, some other transfers, free cash applied of $3.9 million. That yields a tax levy this year of $17,578,000. So, as we said, the tax levy is $17,578,000. As we determined earlier, the total town value is $895,036,000. The tax rate, you divide the $17,578,000 divided by the town value, that yields the tax rate of $19.64. It's really that simple. It's not simple, but it's really that black and white. It's simple math. So tax levy comparison, this just shows compared to last year. This year's levy is $17,578,000. Last year was $16,905,000. That's an overall increase of $673,000 or 3.98%. As we talked about earlier, we have $220,000 in new growth. So the increase after new growth is $452,000 or about 2.68%. Levy limit and excess levy capacity. Prop 2.5 defines what you're allowed to raise in property taxes every year. So the levy limit and maximum allowable levy is basically last year's levy limit The law outlines you can increase that by 2.5% a year, plus your new growth, and that'll equal your levy limit. To that, you can add any voter-approved debt exclusions or overrides, and which we'll talk a little bit further about in a moment. What is excess levy capacity? It's simply the maximum allowable levy under Prop 2.5 minus the actual levy that a town is imposing. So for Southbridge, these are the numbers. Last year, our levy limit was $17,070,000. 2.5% increase, according to the law and the formula, we're allowed to increase that by $426,000. New growth, another $220,000. And this year, the voter-approved Bay Path debt exclusion allows an additional $65,246. So what that means is the 2014 maximum allowable levy and levy limit is $17,782,000. That's the maximum that the town of Southbridge would be able to levy. Okay, so again, we would be allowed to levy that $17,782,000, but the actual levy is $17,578,000. So that means we're $204,239 below the levy limit, and that's our excess levy capacity. As part of the state requirements, there's a form I'm going to pass around to you after you come to some votes, just to, I would request you all sign it. Basically, it says you've been informed about the excess levy limit, the levy capacity, and the classification options, which we're going to in a moment. Okay, that was the interesting stuff. Here's the more dry stuff. Classification factor. General law requires the council to adopt a factor between 1 and the minimum residential factor. And that will allow a maximum shift of 50% to the CIP classes. So based on all of the math behind the scenes, that means the minimum residential factor would be 0.846771. And that would put all the way up to the 50% allowable shift to the CIP. So the council could adopt a factor anywhere between 1.0 and that minimum residential factor. A factor of 1 would mean each class is taxed at the same rate, a single tax rate. And some examples of shifts of various classes as follows. Okay, I know you can't read any of that. You have it in your packet. I've passed it out with some blow-ups. And the next slide is a little bit of a blow-up, only it's a little bit easier to see. What this says, and highlighted in yellow, is with a single tax rate, the average single-family property tax bill will be $3,078. Average commercial will be $10,295, and the average industrial will be $10,038. The council could adopt anything in between, but if you go to the very top line there, the maximum shift, that would mean the average residential single family would drop to $2,606, which would be a savings of $472 or 15%. But to do that, it would shift. I'm only going to do the commercial, but with a single tax rate, the average commercial tax bill is $10,295. If we were to shift it to the maximum allowed, it would increase to $15,443. That would be an increase of $5,148 or 50%. The reason is because the commercial industrial personal property is a relatively small percentage of the total, approximately 25%. So for every dollar that you save for the residential, it shifts $3 and something to the commercial. It's very, very difficult. Okay, so this chart right here will illustrate what's going to happen to individual property taxes this year with a single tax rate. Again, I know it's very, very small. The next one breaks it down a little bit. So the average condo, the property tax this year is going to be $1,406. That's a decrease of $35 or 2.47% from last year. Incidentally, condos last year decreased by $123 or 8.19%. And this has to do with their property value in relation to all of the others. So condo taxes will be going down a little bit. The average single family is going to be $3,078. That's an increase of $58 or 1.95%. And again, it has to do with the way the valuations went on the single families. The average two-family, it held its value pretty well. So the average tax on a two-family is going to be $28.19. That's an increase of $133 or 4.96%. Average three-family is $26.13. That's an increase of, $119 of 4.79%. The average apartment building over 4-unit, and again, these are from state use classes. It's not anything we break down, but the state does it this way, so we have to do it this way. Over 4-unit apartment building, the average property tax bill is $5,604, and it will be increasing about $277 or 5.2%. Commercial, $10,295, and they will be increasing $748 this year, even with a single tax rate of 7.84%. Industrial, they'll be increasing 4.25%. Okay, and this is all with a single tax rate. So the reason I kind of point this out is, even with a single tax rate, there's a shift based on market conditions to the commercial, industrial, and personal property sectors. The Board of Assessors, again, we've been doing this a long time. We look at it, we look at other communities. We recommend a factor of 1, a single tax rate for all classes of property. Right now, there's approximately I can't remember the exact amount, but about 1/3 of the communities shift the tax rate. The ones that get away with it are the ones with very prime highway access and so forth. So we don't recommend that. Now, lastly, tax-wise, how do we compare? According to statistics from the DOR, and again, this is cut and dry, it's nothing I'm interpreting. I go on the DOR website, and this is what I pull up. So last year, the average single-family property tax bill was $4,846. Last year in Southbridge, it was $3,079. So that means we were $1,827 less, or 37% less than the state average. We ranked 277 out of the 338 analyzed communities by the DOR in regards to the smallest average single-family tax bill. It put us in the lowest 18.1% in terms of that average single-family property tax burden. So again, last year the average tax bill in Southbridge was $3,019 for single-family. This chart right here just illustrates, I know you can't read the numbers down below. They get busier and busier and things start getting knocked off. But this is showing, the maroon line is Southbridge going back to, I think, 1993. And the green line is the state average. As you can see, the Southbridge tax bill and the state average tax bill has been increasing, but the average state tax bill has been going up at a higher rate. I just simply point that out. Okay, this is compared to our neighbors, just so we can get a feel for where we're at. Southbridge, our tax rate this year, and the reason it's relatively limited is, as of last week, there were only about 80 communities that had a tax rate. So these did, and we have a proposed one. So Southbridge, our tax rate this year will be $1,964, which means an average single-family property tax bill of $3,078. Sturbridge, they have a split rate. As you can see, $1,920 for the residential, $2,165 is the commercial. If you look, if they only had a single rate, it would be that blended rate, which would be $1,968, very similar to ours. But if you look to the right, their average single-family property tax bill is $4,613 versus ours of $3,078. That's reflected because their property values tend to be higher, so each property pays more. In addition, they have a 3% CPA, which is called a Community Preservation Act. They voted for it locally many years ago, and so it's like a surtax. In addition to that $4,613, they pay 3% more, approximately. Charlton's tax rate is $1,266, but their average property tax bill for single family is $3,249. Auburn is similar to Sturbridge. They have a split rate. Their blended rate would be $1,908, and their average single family is $37.94. Dudley, $11.68, and their average bill is $24.23. Okay. Just about finished here, but these are exemptions that are available under state law to help people who need assistance in meeting their obligations. The qualifications are all under state statute. There's not a lot of leeway, but we have a number of people who qualify for these, and I'd be thrilled to talk to anybody who has any questions. Call me at the office. We'll go over it. That top one is a elderly exemption. You get $175 off, and it's based on your financial circumstances. The next one is $500 off. Again, it's another elderly exemption. It's a little more difficult than the top one to qualify for, but many people do. There are various veterans exemptions that are available, but you have to be certified, meet the criteria by the Veterans Administration. There's a blind exemption of $437.50. Hardship exemption, certain really extraordinary qualifications make you eligible for that. The one I'm getting to is next, though, is the Clause 41A tax deferral. This one here, what it allows you to do is, it's for seniors, but what it allows them to do is if they're having difficulty meeting their property tax obligation, you subtract any other exemptions they may qualify for, and then they can defer any or all of their property tax to a later date, either when they sell the property or when they pass away. And this one right here, the state criteria formally required an 8% interest rate, and the income limit was under $20,000. The town council last year, I think it was in January or February, adopted under local option a much better program for the seniors. We lowered the interest rate to 5%, and we increased the income limit to $30,000. So many more seniors can qualify than previously did, and it's not as onerous. At one time, 8% wasn't a bad interest rate, but in the last 10 years, obviously, it's changed. So the 5%, and the council did that in the last winter. Let's see. Okay, lastly, so I'm going to have a sheet that the state requires that the town council sign just to certify that they've been explained these various options, and I would request that you sign it. And I'll pass it around and I'll pick it up after from Councilor Carrasco. Thank you. So anyway, we thank you very much for allowing us the opportunity. I hope I didn't take too long. I know it's been a long meeting so far, but I thank you.
Thank you very much, Will. As always, you're very thorough and stuff. Any councils have any questions at this time right now that they'd like to ask Will?
Just
Councilor Clemens.
Thanks. Just made, if I can remember my notes here. Question, on the income expense report that you send out to multifamily owners, does one large owner, so you end up with a large owner with many properties, I consider a large owner, multiple families, on hard times, and now suddenly vacant properties not being kept up, does that skew the number for everybody else, unfortunately?
No, it doesn't. That's the good thing about the income and expense, because you send it out, you look at it individually for their property, but you also look at it, to get your economic rent for the community. So, for example, if he's fallen on hard times, chances are the property isn't in great condition. So you look and you say, okay, a two-bedroom, which townwide may rent for $600, but it's not in great condition. So it allows you to appraise that property based on its conditions, but it doesn't skew the others. It's just, it gives you evidence and support for, what you come up with your economic rents.
Right, thank you. And I'm glad that you did point out some of the charts with showing that while our tax rate may be high or appeared high, it's not necessarily what the bill reflects. So that was good that you pointed that out. That was something I was going to mention, and then you brought up that slide with the various communities. So I appreciate that, because a lot of times people don't understand it's a shame if our property values were higher. It'd probably look better, but I appreciate that. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you.
All set.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else? Councilor Pelkman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Knoyer, for your presentation. State and local tax policy is a very keen area of interest for me. I know you probably don't hear that every day, but I think what you do is really very interesting. And I thank you for the care that you put into your presentation every year, because it really is very educational. And this really is an issue that affects everybody in the town, and people should try to learn more about it. That being said, I know we have 3 votes to go through regarding this, and I have to say I respectfully disagree with the Board of Assessors' position regarding the tax classification as 1. I think that it would be prudent for us to consider a very modest split in the tax classification, because as you mentioned yourself, Mr. Knoyer, the residential class has been contracting since 2007, and the commercial sector has gone up a little bit. I don't have this specific chart in front of me. Yes, this one. So it seems like the commercial section of this chart is going up over time, but I think it's not because we're having a really big renaissance in commercial activity in Southbridge so much as that everybody's residential properties are worth less and less over time. And as such, I would be really comfortable with like a 10% CIP shift just to do something for the residents. I know that is asking more of the commercial sector in town, but I feel like given with the immense loss of value that we have in our residential housing market year over year, this is an issue where we could stand to take some leadership and do something for the people who make the choice to live here, as opposed to just own a business here. Although I agree that is a very important investment as well. I have things to pass out for you guys as well. I don't know if you want to wait until the actual agenda items come up or not, but there's a really great resource if you want to learn more about state and local tax policy. It's the Mass Budget and Policy Center. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but a lot of the terms I use when I talk about local property taxes are covered in a lot of their work. It's massbudget.org, and I would definitely say for folks at home, if you want to learn more about taxation, which sounds really dull, but I promise you is really interesting the more you spend thinking about it. I would encourage you to check out that website. So, Mr. Knoyer, my question is for you. Although I am in favor of a modest shift of CIP, there's another possible exemption that I've never heard the Board of Assessors discuss here in Southbridge that I'd really be interested in hearing your opinions about. It's called the residential exemption. I'm sure you're familiar with the possibility for us to set different tax rates for different classes of property. But there's different, I'm not sure if it's like a classification, but I know that there's something called a residential exemption, like the city of Boston has it, for example, whereas if there's a residential property that is the property owner's full-time legal residence, then they're able to deduct a certain percentage of that as non-taxable, because to reflect the investment that they're making in the community by virtue of owning a property there and living there full-time and raising their families there. Whereas, how do I frame this? State and local taxes are regressive. I have a chart I can give you guys that show it. Basically, if you look at what people make every year and what they spend, the less income you have, the more you pay in state and local taxes. And something I'm very passionate about is a way to try to change that. Because although I do think that local services are really very important, and I don't mean to argue about budget things at this point, because I know that this is not the time for budget questions. I think when we look at our overall tax levy, I would like us to try to look at ways to make it less regressive. So I don't know if this is something we could discuss in the future, but what would the impact of a residential exemption have?
That's a really good question. I'm glad you asked it. The residential exemption, what it allows you to do is you can deduct up to 20% of the value from your primary residence. I'm just kind of giving a real quick summary on it, from the value that you're taxed on. After all of the math, what happens is the residential class will still pay the same percentage of the total burden, but what it'll mean is the residential tax rate will be higher to compensate for the properties that get that residential exemption. Okay? It's a very good program for certain places. City of Boston, perfect. City of Boston, Somerville, Cambridge, some of the Cape towns, because the people who pay the burden are those who are rent apartment. How do I put this? If you own your property, you get the benefit of the residential exemption, and it gets transferred to the people who, in many, many cases, second homes and so forth, people who own a significant property but don't live there. To the best of my knowledge, we don't have many second homes here in Southbridge. In addition, we have many 3-family and 2-family and 4-family. So out of those 3 families, I would imagine some are owner-occupied. I owned a 3-family, and I occupied it for about 20-something years. So I would have gotten the benefit of that residential exemption. So I would have got a little bit of discount on my value based on the residential exemption, but then that would have got multiplied by the higher residential tax rate. We've looked at this many, many times. Communities like Southbridge, we personally feel, I could do detailed analysis and I'll come up with the same answer. It doesn't make a great deal of sense because, again, there's no second homes here. You don't have a Somerville, a Cambridge, an Everett. I think Marlborough is one where you have big apartment buildings where you have people coming and commuting and going out of town. What we would be doing is we'd be granting the residential exemption on the value to people and then multiplying it by a higher tax rate. So it would just be kind of shifting it up amongst ourselves. Some people certainly would get a little bit of value out of it, certainly.
Folks who need more.
Well, again, if you look around the communities around us, I can't think of one that has the residential exemption closer than Marlborough. I may be mistaken, but I don't think there are any. I think there's only about 13 in the state, and they're the ones we talked about. They're the ones right around the city of Boston, and there are the ones down the Cape, because again, they can shift it to people who don't live there, who have, that type of property. So, it's certainly worth the analysis, but we've looked at it. We don't see really much value in the town of Southbridge.
My one concern with the shifting of the tax classification is if you look at our census figures, most of our housing units are not owner-occupied. They're in fact owned by a landlord and they're rented by a tenant. So in shifting, a wholesale shifting of the residential tax rate versus the commercial tax rate would largely benefit landlords as opposed to people who live in and own their homes, which is why I think perhaps a more targeted approach as a residential exemption would have less of an impact on the commercial sector as opposed to a shift in the tax classification overall, which is why I would love to consider it.
Well, anything is worth considering. I personally don't agree, but
That's okay.
Anything is worth considering. Just a little food for thought. Out of I think we have approximately 2,700 single-family homes in town. There are approximately 5,400, is it 5,400? About 5,600 parcels, real estate. The others are personal property. So what does that mean? About half of our properties are single-family homes, which in the bulk of it, single-family, the assumption is they're owner-occupied. So maybe not, but a single-family home is not a big rental opportunity. There are some, but that's typically not. So basically, you'd be, in a lot of cases, giving them an exemption and then charging them a higher tax rate. So from our analysis, it doesn't make a great deal of sense.
Well, I know that the residential exemption is something that you have to actively apply for. So if a landlord did apply for it, this is something that is checked through the Department of Revenue. So it wouldn't be a wholesale blanket exemption for every single family home. Like you would have to have tax documentation that would certify that this is your primary full-time year-round residence as opposed to a property that you just happen to own. So I think that would safeguard that. But in terms of shifting the burden amongst ourselves, I think that I'm really interested in making local taxes more progressive, which means making people with less resources not have to pay the same tax rate as, say, like Southbridge Savings Bank. If we have a working family struggling to maintain home ownership, I think it's unconscionable to tax them at the same rate as everybody else. And this, I think, would make things more just and fair. And as somebody who spends a lot of time thinking about all of the ways in which we could be doing better in terms of economic policy, and I understand that you have a difference of opinion, and that's completely fine, but this is something that's been a keen interest for me for a long time, and so I would really like to pass this information along to you guys. The Mass Budget and Policy Center also has a service where you can request speakers to come in and give presentations about local and state taxation issues, and this may be something that we could consider as a council as well, just to be able to educate ourselves more about what different options are for taxation policy that are available to us. Thank you.
Councilor Clements?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to make sure I'm understanding the numbers. If we were to do a 10%, and I'm looking at your examples of tax shift, and we're talking commercial and industrial versus residential. Right now, you pointed out under the change from prior year that commercial is up 7.84% and industrial is up 4.25%. So already they have an increase of approximately $750 average on commercial, just over $400 on industrial. You take the 10% shift from $10,295 is what you're proposing this year for commercial, going up to just a 10% brings it to $11,323. That's $1,100 there. So you're looking at over $1,800 increase on a commercial property then, on the average bill. If I add the numbers, would we add the numbers?
You do add the numbers, and that would be correct.
Okay.
Let me just clarify one thing real quick. The way you come up with these average single-family, average commercial, and average industrial, and this is the way they do it statewide, is you take the total value of that class divided by the number of parcels in that class. So single families, whatever, 2,700, whatever the value divided by 2,700 of them, that gives an average value of $156,000. Equals that tax that we talked about here. That's the standard statewide and probably universally everywhere. Same thing with the commercial and industrial. Although with the commercial industrial, there's obviously a great more disparity. That's the average. There's some commercial properties that are valued less than the average, and there are some that are a great deal more that you wouldn't be going up 1,100, they'd be going up maybe 100,000.
Right. So as an aside to that, so if we were to choose to do that, well, okay, so you're looking, when you got your average, we're looking at $1,800 increase. Could you define, you just mentioned, that was good, you said there are some properties. So for instance, perhaps the property that somebody on Main Street might own a large bank or something, their property could be valued because it's well kept and well maintained and higher than the average. Could you give a few examples of commercial? Because I think people only think of commercial and industrial as big business, but aren't we talking about places like a little variety store or, could you define a few commercial places, high and low on the spectrum, so we understand that right now they're going up 7.84% as it is on average?
Yeah, that's a good question. Obviously, all of Main Street. As you go down East Main Street, you have the variety store on the right. You have the shopping plaza on the left. That's like an $10 million property. You have the gas stations. An interesting thing, according to state law, chapter land, which is farmland, forestry land, and so forth, that's classified as commercial. The value isn't anywhere near that we're talking about here, but if we were to shift it, they would pay the higher commercial rate. Again, if it isn't residential, it's commercial. And if it is residential, I don't care if it's somebody's two-family or Rosemead, that's residential. So Rosemead, for example, if we shifted it from residential and we split the tax rate, Rosemead would get a tax break.
Right.
A large place like that. And Brookside Terrace down the other end, 160-something unit apartment building, and on like that.
Okay.
It's not as obvious as it appears sometimes, is my point.
Great. This is a reason why I think a residential exemption would be an interesting avenue to pursue as opposed to a split in the tax rate, because I feel like a Rosemead or a Brookside Terrace doesn't really need any sort of preferential tax treatment whatsoever, whereas I think families that are struggling to maintain ownership in an investment that has lost money year over year since 2007, it's a different financial picture. Thank you.
If I could mention one more thing about the residential exemption, it's very, very complex, and it's the kind of thing that, you know, if you were to say, that's what we're doing tonight, let me tell you, we wouldn't be having our tax bills out in a month because, but it's very complex. One of the downsides to it is, so if you get let's say you did a 10% on the value, so you have a property valued at $200,000 or $156,000 is the average, so 10% exemption on that, so the value would go down by 10%, $15,000. Multiply that by the higher residential tax rate that gets calculated by a lot of this. Properties that are above that $156,000, and I'm not sure at the point, without doing the analysis, people who live in their house, have lived in their house a long, long time, can end up paying more, even though, you know, they say, oh, good, I'm going to get a tax break. I live there, I'm going to get the residential exemption. Higher priced houses, even though the person is a resident there, can pay more. And I'm not talking about the biggest house. I'm not sure where that break point is, but it is there.
Just to clarify, the residential exemption, is it only up to the median home value within the community, or is it?
No, this is how it's calculated. The total number of residential parcels, the total value of the residential parcels divided by the total number of residential parcels. That's how it's calculated.
Okay.
Other places that will pay more, if somebody owns land, big pieces of land, or even moderate pieces of land, or even little undevelopable pieces of land, they will pay more. If they live in that house right there and they own a couple of little lots on the side of it, they may get the residential exemption on that property. They'll pay more on the properties next to it that they also own.
Because they don't live there.
Yeah, because they don't live there.
Right.
As I say, it's complex.
Another question for you regarding a residential exemption. And just to clarify, so a Rosemead would be a residential property. So when we're talking about problems like absentee landlords, you know, we have a lot of conversations about, oh, these absentee landlords were not maintaining their properties, they're a burden on the community, they have tenants who, you know, have more crime and drug issues, and it's oftentimes seen as a detriment to the community. And this is why I think like a split tax classification rate, it's an interesting issue. But you can't raise the tax classification rate greater than 1, correct? It's versus commercial versus residential. It can only be like 0.50 up to 1.
A factor of 1 is a single tax rate. What you do is you lower that rate to that minimum residential factor that I mentioned. I forget what the town of Southbridge, what it calculates out to, but about 0.85.
Right.
If you did that, it would shift to the commercial all the way up to 1.5, which would be, you know, 150%.
Okay, so you mentioned the burden of an increased tax rate to make up for any potential residential exemption, but that increase would be split evenly according to the tax classification, correct, as opposed to?
No, I don't think so. It would remain inside the residential class, because that residential class will pay whatever percent that they pay, and then that residential exemption would do the math on there.
So that changes the tax rate just within the residential sector, not the commercial sector. Is that what you're saying?
The residential exemption, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Clark.
Mr. Chairman, I have a little bit of, I guess, protocol. I mean, it appears that this is almost a local acceptance. This wasn't adequately noticed. This wasn't told beforehand that this was being contemplated for this evening. So I think, you know, the dialogue probably isn't really totally appropriate unless I'm reading this wrong. It appears that it is somewhat of a local acceptance. You know, I'm not familiar with the organization, so I think being handed a lot of information in a short amount of time, you know, I appreciate that Mr. Knoyer has made a solid attempt to try to respond, but I think if this is something that the council wants to pursue going forward, then the council should refer this to subcommittee and go through and vet this out. tonight, I think the question that's before us is the classification question. And I think what I hear is basically, do we want to split and have a split rate versus a single rate? And a 10% shift is I think what's being presented. You know, I had the unique opportunity today. I went around with the the appraiser, to look at town property for redevelopment, to sell it off. We are a secondary market. I mean, people may not want to hear that, but, you know, places that are on, Mass Pike, places on 84, 395, that's your primary market. The best way to cool your commercial industrial market is to do a split rate.
Right.
The town of Sturbridge did a split rate. I can't remember what their percentage was, but they've been trying to back out of that since they've done it. It sends a real message, in my opinion, a very negative message to the business community that, don't necessarily consider here. I think the Board of Assessors have obviously thought about this over the years, understanding the market that we're in, understanding that we don't have close proximity to the highway system, and any kind of disincentive to attracting business, I think is going to have a longer-term ramification to this community than, from shifting away from the single tax rate. If this is something that can be done within a single tax rate and do this, but I think this should be studied. I mean, getting 10 pages of information and trying to digest it in a very short amount of time, I just don't think is a good way to ever set policy, quite
Oh,
honestly.
of course. Well, I find that whenever anybody wants to raise a question about different ideas in terms of how we do fiscal policy, there seems to be this pattern of saying, oh, well, this is not the time to address this. And I understand that this is not the time to fully develop an alternative to the way that we do tax policy, but I would like to just present the information to you guys and give everybody a chance to do some research and thinking about it. Although I do appreciate your comments about the cooling effect on the industrial and commercial sector, I think that given the dramatic loss in value of our residential sector, it's something that warrants looking at. People talk about wanting to attract better residents here who have more money, who can make more investments in the community, and how do we attract people who are like wanting to buy, houses here and raise their children here and everything. And people talk about the Make Southbridge Home program is kind of a joke sometimes, and although I really hate it when people disparage initiatives in the community to try to make it better, I kind of understand the frustration with it, is because we really don't provide any sort of incentive for investment in the community as a residence, and this would provide that incentive, which is why I find it kind of appealing, because I think that our commercial, industrial, and service sector would improve if Southbridge were a more desirable place to buy a home and put down roots. Thank you.
Should refer to general government. Should refer.
Counselor, what I would recommend is you gave all this information to us councils in the future.
Oh, yeah, this is just for your information.
We can look at this in
Yep.
general government in the future down the road, but right now,
Yeah.
we have what we
Right.
have,
Mhm.
and I can agree with you a little on this, because a long time ago when I was a counselor, I said, let's look at shifting, but my personal opinion and experience now is we're struggling to get businesses in the community as it is. We don't need them to abandon us and jump ship, and that's what Sturbridge at one point was doing, and now, as you can see, they're trying to shift it back that way. What we really do need, and I agree, we need to try to go out and get businesses to come to our town to help offset the tax rate for the residents. But I don't think the answer is to shift it over, because we don't have enough businesses as it is right now. You take here and you pay this, sooner or later somebody else is going to be affected, and then somebody else is going to abandon ship. So right now we're trying to hold the ship together, and it's leaking sometimes, but we're trying to reach out and trying to get businesses and trying to get industrial park going, and I know that's the frustrating part of government. It doesn't move as quick as we want it to move. But this is something that can definitely be referred back to subcommittee and look at it as experienced as a council now, you know when we do this the same time every year. So this is something that we can bring to the table
I would love to do
earlier and do the homework earlier. Then it might be a little more clear for everyone. That's all. Okay? Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Vandal.
So Will, what's the percentage of the percentage that the taxes are going to go up? What's the percentage?
Hold on a minute, I had a slide on that.
2.68. 2.68.
Right there, overall, our total levy is 3.98% higher than last year's. However, as I said, we have $220,000 in new growth. New growth is additional taxes for additional things and so forth. So that means the levy is going to be $452,000 more after new growth, or 2.68%.
2.68%.
Overall, and that's after new growth. As I said earlier, the various classes are going to be affected differently. Condominiums are actually going down. Single families, again, which make up about half of our properties, they're going up on average 1.95%. I think that's in the...
What's this slide?
On number 17, it says vote to adopt. I want to vote to adopt a single tax rate for all classes of property. All right, I want to vote for a single tax rate, but I don't want to vote for an increase in taxes. I know I got caught the first few years that I was here with a bunch of other councilors. When we left here, we all said, we just raised the taxes. And I said, no. And it came out that we did raise. I don't want to raise taxes.
I don't know what to say.
So then what do I vote?
I guess the question of how much the budget has gone up has already been answered. So the only question that's really before, especially in these three specifically, are do you want to shift it or do you want to keep it as single? That's the only question. If you want to keep it as single, then as you follow along the element here, 15 you would vote yes, 16 you would vote no, and then 17 you would vote yes. That's what the recommendation of the Board of Assessors is.
And that's increasing to 2.68, no?
That's already in there. It's already been voted. It was voted back in May. So the only thing that's being discussed tonight is, do you want to have it as a single rate or do you want to have it as a dual rate?
I want
That's
a
it.
single rate, but I don't want to raise taxes. I remember...
The opportunity to do the raising taxes has already gone by the boards. That was in May. So that's not germane for tonight. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
One more question.
Councilor Clem.
Just through you to Mr. Knoyer. One other question, the vote on Bay Path, that was important, wonderful thing. That's built into this 2.68, yes?
It is.
And so the increase is perhaps that, you show an average single family of 5888. We were told during that vote time that the average single family could see a $35 or $40 a year burden, weren't we? I thought we were. I don't want to misstate that, so if you can remember.
Yeah, I knew they had said it will cost us so much each family if we voted for it. I had a little note here. I'm trying to figure out something.
I don't mean to put you on the spot. I just know that plays a part in some of the increase we're facing, is the fact that we chose as a community to help our education system, on the Bay Path side of it. And so that's part of it. I mean, reality, we were told, and we voted, and we have to accept that part. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Manna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I just want to say that I, more than anybody, would love to see my taxes go down. But I would have to agree with the town manager, Mr. Knoyer, and a couple of the other councilors for a classification factor of 1%. I will support this because we do need to be a business-friendly community. We do need to draw in those businesses, and that's going to help us in the future. So, thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Carrasco.
Yes, I just want to, I understand that Councilor Clements stated and broke down some numbers in regards to the shift if we were to do a 10%. But then Mr. Knoyer clarified that we would have to still add the increase, the 5888, that's already the change. So in reality, we would decrease our residential tax for a single family by $30, but then increase business $1,800. I mean, $30, it's something that, yes, we're increasing taxes by $30, but we're really sticking it to our businesses at $1,800. It truly, I think, with the sale of some of the properties that we already have, I think we're going to have some new growth revenue coming in. And I know there's an agenda item further that we're going to be voting on for a business, a local business that has decided to stay in Southbridge. So if we, as a council, come in and say, let's shift this around, you know, we're gonna hurt our local businesses. We're gonna hurt our commercial. I'm not for raising taxes. I don't want to see your taxes raised, but I think we have to have a sense of common sense in regards to $30 to $1,800. You know, it's going to be an increase of $60 a year. Break it down, $5 a month. I think some of our single residents can go without a cup of coffee. Let's be smart about this. I really don't want to drive business away, because then we're going to be back here come next year and say, well, what are we going to do? How are we going to attract business? If we don't maintain what has been working right now, it's going to be a scary picture moving forward. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Councilor.
I have a question.
We gotta really start moving here, Councilor.
You don't have to answer this tonight, but I would be interested in learning more about if you have any information about what local tax rates, what impact that has on business decisions, like what, in terms of the investments that people make in the community, just whether a tax classification of 1 versus a tax classification of 0.087, like if there's any sort of academic information about what measurable impact that has on a community. I would be interested in learning more about it, because it seems like whenever anybody talks about it, they kind of only have anecdotal evidence, and that's not a good basis in terms of at least in my opinion, for my decision making. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Will, for everything.
Thank you. It's
very
been
much
fun.
for your
Thank you
patience
very
with me.
much for your time and presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on now to agenda item number 15, vote to establish a tax classification factor of 1.0 for tax purposes. A yes vote for a single tax rate. So if you want the single tax rate, you will need the yes vote.
So moved. Second.
I think we did have enough discussion
No,
on
we
this. Roll call, please.
Counselor Vandal?
Yes.
Counselor Krasko?
Yes.
Counselor Clemens?
Yes.
Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
Counselor Peliquin?
No.
6 yes, 1 no.
Thank you. Motion passes. Agenda item number 16, vote to adopt a variant classification of property for tax purposes, including open space discount and residential exemption. Again, on this one, the board is recommending a no vote. Have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Seeing no discussion, roll call, please.
Counselor Krasko?
Yes.
You sh-
No vote is
The board recommends.
Yeah,
Oh, excuse me. Sorry. No.
it's tricky, it gets tricky.
Sorry. I thought we were in item number 17. Sorry.
Counselor Clemens?
No. Did he want to change that?
Yeah,
I
what-
did change no.
Right, no,
sorry.
yeah.
Okay.
thank you. Just want to, for the record, make
thank
sure.
No.
No.
17.
Counselor Langevin?
No.
Counselor Manna?
No.
Counselor Nicola?
Nope.
Counselor Peliquin?
Yes.
Counselor Vandal?
No.
1 yes, 6 no.
Thank you. Motion passes. Agenda item number 17, vote to adopt a single tax rate for all classes of property. The board recommends a yes vote for on this. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second, okay. I don't see any discussion. I think we went over this, so roll call, please.
Counselor Clements?
Yes.
Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
Counselor Peliquin?
No.
Counselor Vandal?
Yes.
Counselor Crosco?
Yes.
6 yes, 1 no.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Excuse me.
Agenda item number 18, vote to amend the FY 2014 Town of Southbridge General Fund operating budget in the amount of $76,238 as follows. Southbridge Public Schools, $24,502. SWCR SD Bay Path, $28,236. And ambulance billing services, a reduction of $10,000. Town manager search and intern services, $25,000. Data processing, web design, and implementation, $9,100. Economic development specialized services, a reduction of $600, Total budget revisions comes up to $76,238. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Do I have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
Counselor Peliquin?
Yes.
Counselor Vandal?
Yes.
Counselor Crosco?
Yes.
Counselor Clements?
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Agenda item number 19, vote to appropriate $375,000 from the landfill royalty receipts reserve account number 6790 to the FY 2014 contributory retirement account as the second additional payment for the FY 2014. Have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Council Pelican.
Could we have a little elaboration as to what this item is for? Like just a little bit more
Certainly.
description.
Town manager?
We actually had, as part of the budget plan, again, that was adopted in May, that there would be 2 payments made to, out of the landfill royalty, 2 payments into the contributory retirement account, and then the next item would be from, into the OPEB trust fund. So this is taking some of the excess money that we have relevant for the landfill, increasing the tonnage and putting it towards trying to offset some long-term obligations that the town has. And this will have the effect over time of actually being a very positive thing for the taxpayers of Southbridge by pre-funding some of these obligations that are currently on the books.
So I guess I have a question. So agenda items 19 and 20 are linked in that way then, correct?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Agenda items 19 and 20 are linked. This is the same
It's the same as
plan
what we
that,
voted the first half in the May budget.
I believe Spencer Curry did a presentation
Yes,
about
he
this. So my question is, how many years until this plan is fully implemented and these accounts are fully capitalized?
I'm trying to remember from the chart. It was the life, the funding source will go with the life of the landfill.
So is that 12 years or 30 years or?
Depends on what council does.
Okay, thank
In all
you.
honesty.
I don't remember exactly what the presentation said, but I wish I had that in
I
front
think
of.
we had in the
yeah.
presentation, I think we anticipated about, I think it was 10 to 15.
Okay, thank
And
you.
that's just going off the top of my head.
Okay. Yeah.
Any other questions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Manna? Yes. Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
Counselor Peliquin?
Yes.
Counselor Vandal?
Yes.
Counselor Crosco?
Yes.
Counselor Clements? Yes. Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Number 20, vote the sum of $125,000 shall be appropriated from the landfill royalty receipts reserve account number 6790 as a second payment to the OPEB trust fund for FY 2014. Have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
Counselor Peliquin?
Yes.
Counselor Vandal?
Yes.
Counselor Crosco?
Yes.
Counselor Clements? Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
Counselor Manna? Yes. 7 yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Number 21, vote to appropriate $58,500 from the overlay surplus to reduce the FY 2014 tax levy. Have a motion?
Second.
Any discussion on this? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Peregrine?
Yes.
Counselor Vandal?
Yes.
Counselor Crosco?
Yes.
Counselor Clemens? Yes. Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
Counselor Manna? Yes. Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Number 22, vote to raise and appropriate $200,000 to the stabilization fund to cover anticipated additional costs in the FY 2014 snow and ice budget.
So moved.
Any questions on this?
Yeah.
Councilor Nicola?
Thank you. Through you to the chair, to the manager. It says here, anticipated additional costs. This isn't the initial money that we're putting aside for this?
Yeah, I think actually what we're doing in the budget, in the budget plan, is we are putting aside $200,000 to put into stabilization that we would anticipate using for snow and ice purposes. The only reason why I'm looking at the finance director is it's my recollection that you could put money into the stabilization at a simple majority vote. You can only take it out at a 2/3 vote. And if we're putting it into stabilization, then it should be a simple majority vote. Oh, either way. Okay. I trust your judgment. I just was going from memory. So this is to basically, we're pre-funding, which we did in the plan, anticipation of snow and ice costs. So this will give us, I believe, $400,000.
So this is above and beyond the initial $200,000?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And our average has been between 4 and 6, so I mean, this will put us in the ballpark.
Thank you.
Councilor Carrasco?
I just want to refer to the changes in the FY budget that was in our packet. So it would be an increase of $200,000.
Yes.
As a reserve.
As a
reserve. Just
reserving.
to
So we
have-
have, basically, we have $200,000 to cover when it snows. If we go above that, this would be the second allocation. In our track record with snow and ice, I mean, quite honestly, it hasn't been pretty. I think probably the least amount in the last 5 years has probably been about $400,000.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Manna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I believe the town manager already answered this for me, but I'd just like some clarification. This agenda item does require a 2/3 vote?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Counselor Vandal?
Yes.
Counselor Crosco?
Yes.
Counselor Clemens?
Yes.
Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
Counselor Peregrine?
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Number 23, vote to ratify the contract between the Town of Southbridge and Virtual Towns and Schools for web design implementation and annual maintenance of the town's website in the amount of $8,500 for design and implementations and $3,500 for annual maintenance and support. I have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Carrasco?
I just want to say that this is a huge step in moving forward because, again, we want to attract business, but we have to be marketable. If you go in our town website right now, we need some restructuring. We need to market Southbridge better. So I'm really anticipating that this will be money well spent. And I've seen some of the drafts of other websites that they have developed. They look very professional. And again, nothing against to the people that are doing our website now. It's just, I think we have to market our town and be able to attract business. And again, I just want to say I will support this, and I'm glad we're moving in this direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Anyone else? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Crosco?
Yes.
Counselor Clemens?
Yes.
Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
Counselor Peregrine?
Yes.
Counselor Vandal?
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Agenda item number 24, vote to accept the top 7 town manager's goals as revised, for 2014. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
I believe everyone got it in their packet. This is more or less just guidance for the future person coming in and stuff like that. So if there's no discussion, I'll have a roll call, please. Go ahead.
Counselor Clements?
Yes.
Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
Counselor Peliquin?
Yes.
Counselor Vandal?
Yes.
Counselor Kraskow?
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Agenda item number 25, vote to approve the proposed signed bylaw changes as prepared in memo dated August 8th, 2013 from the town manager. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion on this? Councilor Peliquin?
I would like to propose that we send the signage bylaw to either the next regularly scheduled council meeting or a separately scheduled council of the whole meeting, given that we've had such a long meeting already this evening. I know that I would like to propose amendments to the signage bylaw that was proposed in our packets. I went to the General Government Subcommittee in which the signage bylaw was discussed. But since I'm not a member of that subcommittee, I was not able to propose any sort of amended language, so I could do that this evening, but we've already had a very long evening, so.
Okay. Councilor Nicole?
I'd like to correct you. You walked out of that meeting before you were called upon. There was no reason that you wouldn't have been heard like everybody else. But I will say,
You're referring to the bylaw review committee.
I was
This is the
handling-
signage bylaw.
No, the signage bylaw was part of that general government subcommittee.
I stayed for that entire discussion.
Point of order.
Okay.
What I'm getting at
Excuse
is
me.
if there's going to be a lot of discussion about this, as we discussed prior to the meeting, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd be happy to bring it back to general government if there are more amendments or things that people would like to add to it just as a single item.
I wasn't allowed
Because
to make
I
amendments.
I can't tell you how many general government subcommittee meetings since the beginning of this fiscal year, and each one of them keeps getting loaded with items. I have big topics that come on those agendas, and then I get a bunch of other things loaded on, and we're there till 9:15 at night. So I'm going to start saying no when people are adding to the agendas. But if you'd like, we can bring this one back to discuss further, because I know a lot of people had a lot more things they wanted to put on for that bylaw.
Thank you, Councilor. I have two other councilors before you. Councilor Clements.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to bring up that I was concerned about one section, F, the display window signs, the 10%. I know that that was something that was discussed at meeting. It would seem that what was discussed, nothing changed or nothing got questioned after. So I would suggest that perhaps people go with their proposal and then they can decide, maybe
Excuse me.
since
can
she's
you
general
keep
government.
that?
Might I suggest if you're putting it back on general government, which I think is a good idea, that people come with a specific comment or specific wording that they want, and then you decide whether it gets inserted or not, or just left as is. That would be my suggestion there, but because there was something I was out of everything, there was only one thing I was really concerned with, and it didn't get addressed at all either, so that would be my only reason for not wanting this to amend this. But that's only one person. Everybody else might like the 10%, so.
Thank you,
That's it.
Council.
Thank you.
Councilor Manna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Just a question, if this is actually voted on tonight, isn't a 2/3 vote required for this? Because it's not stated. It's just that it's first reading.
This is the first reading of
Just
this.
first
Yeah.
reading. There are
Just the
three
first
readings
reading.
that would be required.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Town Manager.
Mr. Chairman, if it is late, and we did have a public meeting on this to try to get people to be able to put their input in. It wasn't altogether that well attended. I think Amelia was at the meeting. But I do think it probably does warrant having this go back to general government to try to solicit additional input from the community. I think there's a whole bunch of confusion in regards to this. We have a sloppy, messy, inconsistent bylaw right now for signs. This was designed to clean it up, and people think it's trying to make it more regulatory. It's the exact opposite. But I think that people need to kind of read it, absorb it, and decide for themselves what kind of tweaks and changes they want. So I would recommend that it be referred back for at least a more formal public hearing for better input from the general public.
Thank you. Councilor Pellegrin.
My one concern with sending it back to the General Government Subcommittee is that I had attended the General Government Subcommittee with proposed amendments that I would like to make, and I was told by the chair of that committee that since I am not a member, I was not able to propose amendments at the subcommittee level.
That never was said.
asked you.
I choose to differ with you on that. I would never tell any person that attended any one of my subcommittees that they could not add something to that. And I'd like to challenge you and tell me, and to anybody that went to that meeting to say that I said that.
Mr. Chairman, maybe as a suggestion to move this forward, maybe we could do a public meeting in which, administration, either myself or a future manager would, hold that and solicit all kinds of input from all different elements. We've done that before as a method to move forward.
Thank you, and I do agree. Actually, Councilor Moriarty, that couldn't be here tonight, he had questions and concerns, so I really do believe the best thing to do is definitely, which we do have a motion, I don't think we have a second on that one, to refer it back, clean it up.
Second.
Again, I can't say enough, when people ask these things, please make it as much as possible to attend these meetings so we can do our homework, get our work done, and then when we do come to the council floor, we can just proceed forward. So we have a motion, we have a second to send the signed bylaw changes prepared memo back to subcommittee. Any other discussion on this? Yes, Councilor.
One final comment. I want to say that I respect the people who worked really hard on this. I know that a number of groups worked, the Historical Committee and the Development Office and all, and even if nothing ever gets changed, I know at some point I'm prepared to vote the way I need to vote to make sure this moves forward. So I realize that changes, sometimes we can agree, but at times in subcommittee we don't either. And then it comes up here and we just vote. You either want it or you don't, and you move forward with it. So I think I'm very respectful of what they've done. Just a little chance to comment again on one thing I wanted, things that maybe Councilor Moriarty and Councilor Pellegrin were interested in. But ultimately, this document, it could go through as it is, and it would be 99% better than what it was, because I do think most of it in there is really great. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Okay, we're going to have a roll call vote to send this back to subcommittee.
Councilor Langevin?
Yes.
Councilor Manna?
No.
Councilor Nicola?
Yes.
Councilor Pellegrin?
Yes.
Councilor Vandal?
Yes.
Councilor Croscoe?
Yes.
Councilor Clements?
Yes.
6 yes, 1 no.
Thank you. Motion passes. Agenda item number 6, vote to amend the new Globe Village Economic Target Area and include within the following portions of the tax map as shown on the map, which is on file with the town clerk and the town manager's office, to authorize the town manager to offer a tax increment financing package for qualified economic development projects undertaken within said economic opportunity areas. Map 31, lot 39, and lots 144 to 147. Map 32, lots 1 through 4, and lots 47 through 50. Map 33, lot 1, 1A, 2, 2A, 2B, 2C, 3, 3A, and 3B, lots 4 through 6, lot 6A, lot 7 through 13, lots 103 through 130, and lots 132 to 139, map 34, lots 111 to 115, lot 115A, lots 116 to 117, lots 120 to 125, lots 127 through 144, lots 146 to 147, lots 150 through 163, and lots 174 through 176. Map 49, lots 159 to 160, lots 150A, lots 161, 163, 164, and 184. I have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on this? A lot of lots. Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
Counselor Peliquin?
Yes.
Counselor Vandal?
Yes.
Counselor Crosco?
Yes.
Counselor Clements?
Yes.
Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
7 yes.
This is one. Motion passes. Just a point of reference, I'm going to read something on the back page. It's more clarified. This was already printed up, but, so agenda item number 27, vote to approve the project certification application submitted by Expert Lasers Inc. for a facility located within the South Central Massachusetts Regional Economic Target Area at the project site shown in the project certification application, in the tax increment financing plan and tax it is a long night. Excuse me. Tax increment finance agreement between Expert Laser Service and Corp. in the town of Southbridge. All in the forum has submitted to the town council. This approval confirms the information contained in the project certification application that A, the project as proposed is consistent with and can reasonably be expected to benefit significantly, from inclusion in the Glow Village Economy Opportunity Area as amended. B, the project is the first certified for the amended Glow Village Economic Opportunity Area and will not overburden the town's infrastructure and utility services, the Economic Opportunity Area. And C, the project as described in the project certification application will have reasonable chance of increasing employment opportunities for residents of South Central Massachusetts Regional Economic Target Area, thereby reducing the blight, economic depression, and reliance of public assistance. The town requests that the project be designed as a certified project for a term of 5 years. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
Counselor Peliquin?
Yes.
Counselor Vandal?
Yes.
Counselor Crosco?
Yes.
Counselor Clements?
Yes.
Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
7 yes.
Motion passes. Thank you. Number 28, vote to approve the components for a new FY 2014 Community Development Block Grant application and authorize the town manager to sign grant document. Have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Peliquin?
Yes.
Counselor Vandal?
Yes.
Counselor Crosco?
Yes.
Counselor Clements?
Yes.
Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Number 29, vote to recommend that a proposed amendment to the Town of Southbridge zoning bylaws pursuant to Mass General Laws Act 2012, Chapter 369, and Act for the humanitarian and medical use of marijuana be sent to the Planning Board to receive public comment. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Councilor Pelican?
I know that there had been a citizen who had wanted to speak on this issue, but given the lateness of the hour, it seems like she's left. Although I would support sending this to the planning board for further comment, I would like to do so with the stipulation that I don't think this is the language that we should ultimately be adopting into our zoning bylaws. I think that there were some really good points raised in subcommittee about a cultivation site versus a dispensary site, and this may be something that we might want to look at separate zoning regulations for. Like a dispensary is more of a retail operation, whereas a cultivation site is more like a warehouse industrial or an agricultural application. So this may be an issue that we might want to look at in terms of two different charts on the table of zoning regulations. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Vandal?
Yes.
Counselor Crosco?
Yes.
Counselor Clements?
Yes.
Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
Counselor Peliquin?
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Number 30, vote to accept the 2013 updated master plan as presented to council. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Councilor Pelkey.
Just to clarify, this hasn't been updated since we were presented with the big master plan book. This is the same draft? Okay.
It's the same.
Okay, thank you.
All set? Any other questions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Krasko?
Yes.
Counselor Clements?
Yes.
Counselor Lanzervan?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
Counselor Peliquin?
Yes.
Counselor Vandal?
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Agenda item number 31, Councilors Forum. I'll start with Councilor Clements.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just want to say thank you to the fire department and the police department for helping us out last night. We had a really good turnout, and we just appreciate their help. Officer Avansky, who met with a little slippery conditions and was out there all night for us, we do appreciate her help, and so thanks to everybody who participated. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Manna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I would also like to thank all those who participated in last night's event. It was a very good turnout, even though the weather was pretty bad at the beginning of the day. We had a really good turnout, and it was for the kids. And the kids, the smiles on their faces and the excitement, it was just all worth it. So I would like to thank all that participated. All that helped, and I would especially like to thank Councilor Clements and her family for the amount of work that they did this year. I could go on with the list, but we'd be here till 10 o'clock, so that's all I'm going to say for now. And I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
Matt,
Certainly.
A business question. I was approached by a gentleman, and I was going to bring this up, I'll bring up the name privately, but I was approached by somebody who had a concern about fire hydrants. You know, generally it's the property owner's job to shovel around a fire hydrant. What does a person do, or how do they exempt themselves if they have a medical condition that they can't shovel the fire hydrant? And, you know, that beyond finding another neighbor somewhere, what should who do they approach? I'm saying this because this is one question from one citizen, but perhaps there's others who are elderly or had a heart attack or have, you know, some other issues that they cannot shovel their hydrant and they're worried about getting a ticket.
I would probably start with the fire chief.
Okay, I mean, I had my list, but I just thought I'd bring it up for there may be others out there who are concerned. So, thank you.
You're welcome. Councilor Vandal.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have anything this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Peliquin.
I wasn't able to attend the tree lighting last night due to a family obligation out of town, but I wanted to thank those of you who participated in organizing and executing it. I heard good things about it. We attended last year and as a family, and we really enjoyed it, so thank you very much for that. And another thing, this is kind of a random aside, but the animal control officer knocked on my door today looking for a cat that she had received a complaint about in my neighborhood. So if you live on the upper end of Marcy Street near Hartwell and you are missing a cat, it may be because the animal control officer has taken your cat. So I'm just throwing that out there. So thank you. I'm all set.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Nicola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the manager. Mr. Clark, do you have an idea when I will be getting information regarding the assessment of the property up at the airport so we can go ahead and have the second meeting? Because I've been getting calls from the Airport Commission. The grant time frame is getting close, and I need to have some idea.
Sure.
Could you let me?
He came out today. We went and looked at the sites. I think by contract, he has to have it done by December 15th, so I would imagine we'll have it fairly shortly.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Other than that, I really don't have much. I was not able to attend last night's, for the first time in all my years working on that project. I was out of town, but my dad was very pleased, and I, for my dad, would like to thank all of the people who worked so hard on that project. You do so much to make him happy because he physically can no longer do that kind of thing, and he enjoys watching you do it. He feels like you're all his kids, and he wanted you to know that he greatly appreciates all of your hard work. You're all officially his elves. So, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Council. Councilor Carrasco.
Thank you. I do have several items. I'm going to make it quick. First, I just want to thank the group that puts on the tree lighting and the facilities at the Town Common. I have 3 little ones, and they look forward to it every year. So I want to thank them. I actually got to meet your father, Councilor Nicola, and he actually, my son was kind of shocked because he walked up to my son and gave him a big wet kiss, and he said, "This is for you." And my son said, "Thank you." So truthfully, thank you. It really brightens our community, and it's one way, again, to show that we pull together to do good things. Also, on another hand, I would like to thank those that came out for the Thanksgiving dinner. And I want to especially thank His to Own Youth Ministry this year, which set up the whole event and actually served the meals on Thanksgiving Day. We served approximately 110 meals on Thanksgiving Day. So that was a very grateful way to be able to say thanks to the community, and I just want to say thank you to those that were participant. Also, I received a call. There is going to be a Latino parents meeting in regards to some of the changes that are going on with our educational department and updates. It's coming this Thursday, December 5th, at the public library from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. It is going to be it's going to be translated in, the meeting is going to be in Spanish, with English translation. They're trying to get as many Latino parents out there so they can understand some of the changes that are happening within the school department and update parents. So it's a free event. Please come down. If you have a child, a nephew, and whatever in our school system, please come down December 5th at our public library from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Also, there is going to be on December 14th, Councilor Moriarty and also school committee member Lauren McGoffin are preparing a one-year anniversary of a candlelight peace vigil with a couple speakers. And immediately following there's going to be a community reception at the former Southbridge High School at 25 Cole Ave, where hot soup and hot chocolate will be served, and we'll have several discussions. In the last 18 months, we endured the shock of Sandy Hook, what happened in Boston, the shootings at the Naval Yard in Washington, also in Colorado, and also some of the things that are hitting our local town. We've seen random acts of violence, stabbings, shootings, attacks, vandalism. So we're trying to pull the community together and declare peace. So we're asking everybody to come out December 14th. It will start at 5 p.m. It will be at McMahon Field. And after, again, there will be a community reception at the former Southbridge High School. Through you, Mr. Chairman, I do have a question to our town manager. I know prior to my election, the council was given a timeline when the licensure of our current interim DPW director would have her licenses transferred. Can you give this council an update on this matter prior to your departure, just to tie up some of those loose ends? Thank you. And that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Agenda item number 32, discussion of the next meeting. Our next meeting will be Monday, December 16th, 2013, 7 p.m. in the council chambers. And agenda item number 13, a motion for adjournment.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Get your hand up.
Thank you, everyone, for being so patient. Everyone have a good night, and we'll be back.